All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I'm your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. All right, check this out, check this out, check this out. Looks like my Wi-Fi dipped down a little bit there, so I apologize for that if we're having latency issues. It is Friday night on the west coast of America, 3 p.m. in the afternoon here. It is time for Corpus Hermeticum. We're going to do the Hermetica again. Let me pull down this overlay on the screen right here. I moved out of that window and went over to the chat. Welcome, everybody. Denise, welcome. Share this out, like I said. Get everybody in here. Let me pull this down so you guys can see me here. If I can get this to turn off. There we go. All right, there I am right there. Let me put myself up in full screen for a minute, and then we'll get going on that as we go here. Let me go back over here and see what you guys are up to. Yes, Denise, thank you. Start tagging everybody. I didn't even get a chance to start doing that myself, so let's get that going, right? So we're doing the Hermetica. I see that my Wi-Fi is dipping down, so I hope I'm not buffing. So we're doing the Corpus Hermeticum of the Hermetica, that portion of it. So we're on part 2, and it's actually part 2 of the Corpus Hermeticum, chapter 2. So that works out pretty good. If we can do a chapter a week, we'll be doing all right. So like I said, share this out, get everybody in here. Let's get everybody in here. And if you guys don't give me a shout out, I just see numbers. So I don't know that you're here if you don't say hi in the chat, right? Those of you listening around the world on the MP3 broadcast, you guys can't talk to me live anyways because you're on an MP3 broadcast podcast application somewhere around the world. But welcome to you guys just the same. You guys can still contact me via email. You can either go to podbean.com and send information there. Go to www.orionrising.podbean.com because I pay them money. So my site is there with the RSS number. So if you're listening to my podcast on a application that you don't really like, but that's where you're at, but you can go to that website, www.orionrising.podbean.com, and you can get the RSS number and put it in whatever application that you prefer to listen to my show in. And when you put the RSS number in there, whatever app you listen to in the MP3 broadcast will, in fact, download all of my shows. And we're at almost 500 episodes that are available if you guys listen to of Orion Rising. Even though there are more than 1,000 episodes, I don't have the first 500 episodes on MP3 platform because they were deleted 3 years ago when I got deplatformed from Google because I did not allow them to have full access to all of my bank accounts and all of my passwords, and they got mad at me and deplatformed me. Okay. Brooke, welcome, baby. I love you. There's my wife right there. She just popped in to say hi. Reese, welcome. Who else did you see? Jamie. Jamie, welcome. Who else? Whoever's in there in the audience. If you guys don't say hi, I don't know that you're here. Welcome, everybody. Namaste, Reese. Namaste, brother. So yeah, we're on part 2, book 2, or chapter 2 of the Corpus Hermeticum. We ended last week at exactly that spot, which worked out good for us. So I failed to mention that we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I've been going live there. I don't really have a lot of audience there, but if TikTok ever gets its stuff figured out here in the United States, it just got another 3-month extension. I may start going live on TikTok. I'm going to look into that because they just got an extension as of today or yesterday for another 3 months in the United States. So they're still trying to figure out their dilemma with the United States before they get banned here. So I know that I have 90 days, so I might start going live on TikTok instead of on Instagram. Okay, so let me pull myself out of full screen here, or put the YouTube channel up in full screen, and literally we're at the spot where it's about to switch over to chapter 2 of the Corpus Hermetica. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll do a sound check. So let me go over to YouTube and put that up in full screen so you guys can see that in full screen. And then I'll go ahead and press start. And I'm sure that the first thing that'll happen is that I'll end up with a commercial because that's usually what happens. And that's okay. We'll just have to fast forward past the commercial to do that. But let me bring this up and we'll go ahead and give it a shot. We'll start it. And we'll see what happens. Oh, I got to pull this up in full screen too, don't I? No, that was full screen. Okay, let me make sure that I'm in full screen in the studio. Yes, I am. All right, so let me go ahead and start. and we'll do a sound check. You guys let me know if you can hear it okay, because I don't have this up loud, so I'm sure I have to adjust it. And we'll get started with the Corpus Hermeticum, part 2 or chapter 2 of the Corpus Hermeticum, and from the Hermetica text. I put in the description this time. I forgot to tell you that. I put in the description this time the synopsis of the Corpus Hermeticus. Last time I didn't have time to do that, so this time I have the description up there. That's actually from Wikipedia. So if you guys can look there. In fact, because it's from Wikipedia, I also copied the links to the references, so you can click on the highlighted links that are there, and you can go to those links as well. That's all directly from Wikipedia. Okay, let's do a sound check here, and you guys let me know if you can hear it okay. This is chapter 2 of the Corpus Hermeticum.
2. Is it not true, Asclepius, that everything moved is moved in something and by something? Certainly. But isn't it necessary for that in which something is moved to be larger than the moved? It is necessary. So then the mover is stronger than the moved. Stronger indeed. And that in which something is moved must necessarily have a nature contrary to that of the moved? Yes, entirely so. This cosmos is large then, and no body is larger. Agreed. And is it densely packed? For it has been filled with many other large bodies, or rather, with all the bodies that exist. So it is. But is the cosmos a body? A body, yes. And a moved body? Certainly. The place in which it moves, then, how large must it be? And what is its nature? Is it not larger by far so as to sustain continuity of motion and not hold back its movement, lest the moved be crowded and confined? It must be something truly enormous, Trismegistus.
Why did Amazon send me $20,000? Because I use Amazon
A new
AI.
one was coming.
I'm going to...
There we go.
What is its nature?
Let me know if you guys can
It will
hear
be
that.
of a contrary nature, Asclepius, no?
I didn't see that.
But the nature contrary to body is the incorporeal. Agreed. Place is incorporeal then, but the incorporeal is either divine or else it is God. By divine, I mean here the unbegotten, not the begotten. If it is divine, it is something essential, but if it is God, it comes to be even without essence. Otherwise, it is something intelligible, and this is why. For us, God is the foremost intelligible entity, but not so for God himself. What is intelligible falls within the awareness of one who thinks of it. Thus, for himself, God is not intelligible, because he is not something distinct from the object of his thought. In other words, so as to be an object of thought for himself. For us, however, he is something distinct. Hence, he is an object of thought for us. But if place is intelligible, it is intelligible not as God, but as place. And if it were intelligible as God, it would be regarded so not as place, but as energy capable of containing. Yet everything moved is moved not in something moved, but in something at rest. And the mover is also at rest, unable to be moved conjointly. How then, O Trismegistus, are the things of this world moved conjointly with their movers? You have said that the planetary spheres are moved by the spheres of the fixed. This motion, Asclepius, is not conjoint but opposed, for the spheres are not moved in the same way. They move contrary to one another, and the contrariety keeps the motion balanced through opposition.
Now, remember, I'm going to remind you, in case you just tune in, every time I should do this in every episode. Asclepius, literally, it's Greek, ancient Greek, and it actually means the son of man, basically, the son of the teacher of God, of man. So, godly teacher of man. So there was always discussion, and this is partly where they based Jesus being the voice of God and Jesus in the Trinity of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, because of Jesus when he was here saying, "I am the Son of Man." And Asclepius literally means the teacher of man, the illuminator of man. So when Jesus said, "I am the Son of Man," people then started to equate that with him being the voice of God, and the church then said the Holy Trinity was because Jesus was the voice of God. Therefore, it was God speaking through him. So when Jesus was down on earth, he was God on earth, and that's where you get the Holy Trinity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? That's why the Latin "in nomine Patri Spiritu Sancti," which means in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. So that's where they get that from, and you see here that with the Hermes tradition, they're using the vernacular, or whoever, if it was Hermes that wrote it, is using the vernacular and speaking to God, that God said that, called himself that. So that's why he wrote that down, not because he was a Christian, but because that was what that was at the time. But it was in a time, this happened around the year 100 to 300, right, when Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written. I think Luke was written at about 600 AD, but don't quote me on it. I know that one of them was around 800, one was at 100, one was at 400, and one was about 600 to 800. John was the first book that was written. So this was written between 1 and 300 AD. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are what we actually have in the Christian Bible as the first books, were written at the same time period between 100 and 6 to 800 BC or AD, Anno Domini. So it's around the same time period, which is why you hear the kind of the verbiage, even though it's a Greek text, you hear the style and the verbiage translated into English that sounds very familiar if you read the Old Testament or the New Testament, because that is the style of the writing for religion at that time, especially in that part of the world where you had Judaism and the like, Christianity starting. It was the way that they wrote things then. Okay, let's continue.
Resistance is the stilling of motion. Since the planetary spheres are moved contrarily to the fixed, by a contrary encounter with them, they are moved because of their balance in relation to the contrariety itself. It cannot be otherwise. For example, those bears that you see neither setting nor rising but turning about the same point, do you think they are moved or at rest? They are moved, Trismegistus. What sort of motion, Asclepius? Motion revolving about the same points.
Welcome to Reserve at the Ranch, a community of new homes in Rancho Cordova, California. Enjoy amenities.
Revolution is the same thing as motion about the same point that is held in place by immobility. Going around it prevents going beyond it. But when the going beyond is prevented, there is resistance to the going around, and thus the contrary motion remains constant, stabilized by the contrariety. I will give you an example here on Earth, one that your eyes can see. As they swim, observe mortal living things, those like a human, I mean. When the water rushes by, the resistance of feet and...
I forgot to turn those on. I apologize for that. They were defaulted last time. This time they were not. So for those of you who are looking at that, you might have a small screen and you can't read along with the book that is visually on the screen. I have the subtitles that I'm going to put up again so that it records that with the subtitles for people to watch in the future. And if that bothers some people, because the subtitles also get on the bottom of the screen where the book is, I apologize for that. I'm trying to make sure that all people who either learn visually or by sound or by both are accommodated in the experience of translating the Greek Corpus Hermeticum. Let's continue.
And hands becomes an immobility, so that the person is not swept downstream with the water. A clear example, Trismegistus. Thus, all motion is moved in immobility and by immobility. And it happens that the motion of the cosmos and of every living thing made of matter is produced not by things outside the body, but by those within it acting upon the outside, by intelligible entities, either soul or spirit or something else incorporeal. For body does not move ensouled body, nor does it move any body at all, not even the soulless. How do you mean this, Trismegistus? Are they not bodies that move sticks and stones and all the other soulless things? By no means, Asclepius. Not the body itself, but what is within the body that moves the soulless thing is what moves them both.
Okay, I also want to pause here and point out that this style of the conversational style that this is written in, where even Trismegistus, who is the Hermes, the 3 times great, who was actually having a conversation. I apologize. I'm clicking on the window to check on Instagram, and my computer's doing what it did last time, where unfortunately that it was tripping on me for a second. So if I was buffing right then, I apologize. It looks like that. Let me hit play on YouTube and see if because the screen disappeared again. So let me hit play.
The body that
Okay, so I apologize for that. My latency dropped out and everything disappeared again. Tina, welcome. Penny, welcome. Fiona, welcome. I'm glad you guys are joining us. So yeah, please share this out to everybody. So I want to point out, stop here for a second because I should have pointed that out last week and I did not. I want to point out that this style of conversation, if you read Aristotle, especially Socrates, a lot of the Greek philosophical conversation is done the exact same way. At that time period, the Greeks, the style of the conversation and the banter back and forth, or the Q&A back and forth between parties in philosophical thought, was the way the style that they wrote back then. So if you read any Greek philosophers, the greats of that time, you'll see that there's always conversation back and forth. So this style of Hermes talking to God or the entity that he's talking to, and having this conversation to where they're actually having a debate, a philosophical, religious, or spiritual debate, not from a standpoint of a adversarial, but just from the standpoint of questioning and answering, the way, say, when I was doing the Law of One, you see Dawn asking questions of Ra. And you see more feedback from the other side, where the other side is asking questions and responding to questions at the same time from the Hermes in this case, where that style is very Greek oriented to that time period, 5,000 years ago. Coming forward, the Greek Empire was famous for that kind of Q&A. So this is not out of the ordinary. In fact, it would have been very well written at the time, and very widely read by, at the very least, the Mesopotamians and the Greeks, because of the style of Q&A. And still to this day, people read Aristotle and Socrates and a bunch of others that were around at the time, and if anybody's ever listened or read any of the books of the great philosophical masters, you'll know what I'm talking about. That Q&A is standard operating procedure, so it's not out of the ordinary for this Q&A to happen. So some people speculate because of that they wonder if the Q&A really happened this way. But it was the way that the Greeks interacted. So I would assume, and anyone should, that if, say, a Greek Hermes, for an example, was to speak to God, Hermes would act exactly this way, because the Greeks were traditionally and historically, empirically, historically thinkers, in questioning everything. And so having many Q&As back and forth to try and wring out as much as they could about whatever they were talking about, to whom they were even having a conversation, let alone whether it was the creator of the universe or not. It would be in their instinct to have a conversation exactly this way. So the style of the writing or the wording is very stylistic for that period, with the way the Bibles were written. Only this has been translated past the King James translation more into the modern era, which is, it tells you that because it was written in Oxford University in the last century, in the 20th century, in the 1900s. This translation, not the Hermes Hermetica. That was just, they translated it, and this book is a translation from Oxford. So the modern English wording would be like akin to the New World version of the Bible, where a common era version of the wording. This is also done that way in that style. So, but you can still tell the style of the wording is very translated from the style that they used in the way they spoke in the time of Jesus and less than 1,000 years after that. So for those of you who are a linguist or historians or theologians, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can see that there, even though it's been translated into a modern English translation. So Joanne, welcome. Okay, so Penny said, this tends to be my problem. I tend to ask all the questions before reality even plays out, which stops me from doing some things. Well, it's never wrong to ask questions, Penny. You should always ask questions. I was just talking to Brooke about this. I believe last night I was just talking to Brooke about this, where the truth is, if you look throughout time, all of the ascended masters throughout time were trying to get you to think. Socrates, the aforementioned Socrates, once said that I can't convince you of anything, or I can't convince anyone of anything. The only thing that I can hope for is to get you to start thinking for yourself. That's a 5,500-year-old ideology from the Greek philosopher. Jesus spoke the same way. We teach the same way. I teach the same way in trying to instill in you the ability and the necessity to question everything, because the second you start questioning everything is the beginning of your breaking of the conditioning that this place of this matrix puts on you. So never apologize for asking questions. You can never ask too many questions. You can never ask a wrong question. There's no wrong question. There's only questions. And everyone should always be asking questions with everything. And that's why I say, and Penny, you know this, and Denise, you know this, those of you who listen to me long enough or watch me long enough know that I always say, don't believe a word I've said. Go down that road and try and prove me wrong in any way. Ask questions, question what I say, because you want to question everything. That is the way that you find answers. And when you have philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche, when one of the last things he said was, it wasn't the last thing, but it was one of the last things that he said, was that he believed that he wasted his life because, pondering philosophy for all of his life posed more questions than it did, right, Denise? Look it up. Yeah, exactly. How many times do I say that, right? Denise said that. But Nietzsche said, doing this endeavor, I feel that I've wasted my life because every question that I've asked has never yielded any answers, just more questions. That is the state of being in this beingness. There is no end to the internet. There is no end to questioning. You're always going to pose more questions when you question. The answer is the question. The question is the answer. That's where we get to learn, teach, learn. The answer is the question. The question is the answer. That is why philosophy in the Greek pantheon meant the love of knowledge or the knowledge of love, not just the study of something. Theology comes from the Greeks, and it didn't mean the study of just religion. It meant the study of all things natural and supernatural when it was related to spirituality and the creation of the universe. It was an entire concept that you can look up. All right, let's continue here. Right, let's move along.
That bears as well as the body that is born. Hence the soulless will not move the soulless. And so you see how the soul is overloaded when it bears two bodies by itself. And so it is clear that things moved are moved in something and by something. Must things that are moved be moved in emptiness, Trismegistus? Hold your tongue, Asclepius. Not one of the things that are is empty by reason of their substantiality. For a being could not be a being if it were not full of substance. The subsistent can never become empty. Are not some things empty, Trismegistus, such as a pail, or a pot, or a vat, or other such things?
Another commercial. I apologize for that. It's just the nature of the beast.
Ah, what a great mistake, Asclepius. Would you consider empty the things that are entirely and completely full? What do you mean, Trismegistus? Air is a body, no? Yes, it is a body. But does not this body pervade everything that exists, and fill them all by pervading them? And a body is a mixture constituted of the four elements.
Weirdly, I have noticed that I'm reading Denise's thing. As I'm doing this, when I was doing the Law of One, I didn't get as much problems with the latency and the Wi-Fi, but it seems that when I am doing the each week now that I've done the Hermeticus, the Hermeticum, it's been having problems with my latency when I talk about certain subjects. Denise, I'm sorry, what was your question? You said, I'm sorry if I missed it. What does he mean that a soul is in two bodies? Okay, so that's a good question. So I'm sorry if you posed that and I didn't see that. I apologize for that because I was bouncing back and forth and trying to figure out why my Wi-Fi was tripping. So what he means by that, remember I had made the comment that we have separated things in a way that they did not in the Greek pantheon. In the Greek pantheon, you I think, therefore I am, meant that you were immortal and that you had a soul. They didn't see the difference between a soul and a spirit. We have evolved to where we see the difference between a soul and a spirit. So we have a differentiation, the soul being the human body and the condition being in the human body, and then the spirit being your everlasting soul. So we still have a reference where we say that soul and spirit being the same thing. When they're referring to the soul is in two bodies, they're at that point in the realization, Hermes as well, in this context, that you are your higher self and you are in this body. So you have a physical body where you reside, where I'm right now in this physical plane, in this physical body. And then I have a spirit body where my soul is actually residing as well. So you're in two places, the earth, the physical place, and the spiritual, the astral plane where you exist. So the soul is, so when they're referring to that, what does it mean when the soul is in two bodies, the physical body and the spiritual body? Because that's where we transition into. The upper three chakras is transitioning away from the physical body. I talked about that during the Law of One many times, where when you're living in the flesh, you're living here in the bottom three chakras in the physical plane. That is this world, that is this matrix. As you start ascending in your spiritual body or in your spiritual place, as in service to others, not in service to self, because in service to self, people believe this is all there is, this physical place. People who are in service to others start questioning and they start moving into their upper three chakras. That is the non-physical plane, which is the density as opposed to our dimension. Dimensionality is third dimension physicality. Density is third dimension spirituality. So as you start moving up, you then have you have two bodies always. You have a higher self that resides somewhere that is not inside of this body that you're in. So you have the physical body where your spirit is residing in. And then, yes, Joanne said, our higher self? Yes. So your higher self is spiritual. Your higher self is energy. So that's a light body. You've heard people use that term, I'm sure. So the light body is your soul body that you reside in the spiritual, that is non-physical. So your higher self is completely in the non-physical realm. That's who you actually are, but you're down here in this physical body as this personality, which is part of your higher self, but not 100% of it, because you're veiled here. So until you become unveiled, you don't realize your totality as that spirit body. So you're actually in two places at once, and you can be in more than two places if you are in a different body, in a different plane existing at the same time, but you wouldn't be aware of it in this physical body unless you've unlocked the ability. For instance, every single person you have been throughout time in the past is a different distinct personality and piece of your higher self. The same way we all are a different distinct personality separate from the creator, but we're still part of the creator and the creation. So that's as above. So below is your higher self, which is halfway through the sixth density, not dimension, density, which is the spiritual realm. Then you're there as an anchor, and then you're split between all of the personalities that you have been in every past life, the one that you're currently in, and every split for every personality that you will be in the future, until you completely and learn and complete all of the things that you need to move up into the fourth density, or fourth dimensionality density, and then up to the fifth and up to the sixth, and then eventually with this, yes, with the same soul. Yes, it is you the entire time, your higher self the entire time. And a part of your higher self is going down and becoming veiled in the, say, the third dimension, or partially veiled in the third and the fourth and up into the fifth. And that becomes an individual personality that on a higher level is your higher self. The same way that individuality that is your higher self is separate from the creator, but on a high enough level back to the creator, you become one with the creator, and you are no longer an individual. So you have all these offshoots that are down here, say on Earth, from, if you've been here for 10 lifetimes, you have 10 different distinct personalities that were veiled in the beginning of their time, and 7 to 10 lives, whatever it takes for you to move up, you will have 7 to 10 lifetimes or more in an instance like this place where everybody's stuck and hasn't graduated. Okay. So, and so Penny asking the question, Leo, can you also split into more than 2 bodies? I've always felt that I have at least 4. Yes, because you are in each personality that you were in the past. Those are all distinct, even though it's your higher self. All of them are your higher self. They're veiled, so they don't know it. So they're a distinct personality that gets, the whole purpose of the veiling is so that you have completely different experiences than the last body that you were occupying, the last personality. We're supposed to have natural, organic experiences that are different. So the only way that they can be different is we can't remember. We're not supposed to remember who we were in a past life, so that we'll learn either the same things in a different way, or different things the same way, or different things different ways. Do you see? So all of that can't work if you remember all of the lives that you are. So the only time that happens is when you're in a place or a person like myself that has come back to help out. Okay. So I remember who I was in my past lives. I also know who I'm going to be in my future lives if I need them. But no one ever talks about that because it freaks people out to look forward. And it's easier to find yourself in the past than it is to look forward. So looking forward scares people. So that's usually the last thing they do before they wake up. So Denise, yes, with the same soul, you're still the same soul, but when you become veiled, you become an individual piece of that soul, and it's still you, but you don't know it. So you become an individual, and you have your own individual organic experiences and memories as whoever you were in each past life, and then this life. So right now in this life is where you're conscious and residing is in this life, in this timeline, but you're also coexisting at the exact same time in every past life that you've been in, because time only happens here. Outside of time, when you get to the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, and so on, time doesn't exist the way it exists down here. So you're actually existing in every past life that you were in at the exact same time that you're existing as Denise. But you just don't remember it and don't know it. So you have, multiple personalities, because you have multiple personages that you were in multiple lifetimes. So once you start to unlock that, it also helps you to create your totality, because when you expand your consciousness, to the place of I've had many different lifetimes. Who were they? And you start unlocking that. You start realizing that you were individuals who were veiled or partially veiled and sometimes unveiled, learning who and what's going on in the universe from all those different perspectives. Your higher self is witnessing all of those different perspectives and learning from those, and all of those perspectives that your higher self is learning from and everyone else's higher self is learning from, the creator of the universe is learning from the same way we're learning from each individual. So my higher self, who is Kelto, is learning from what Leonard learns down here, and Kelto is learning all of those things, and the creator is learning from Kelto all of these other things. And then eventually I will go back to the creator, forget who I am, and merge with the creator, as will every other being in all of the multiverses at some point. And then you'll cease to be those, and then you'll only be the creator. Okay. So I hope that helps out. Right. So, right. And then Penny says, so the fact that I know I have at least 4 or more tells me that I have grown. Yes, Penny, that means that you're aware of at least 4 of your lifetimes that you were in, and you should explore that more and get in touch with the memories from those persons, and make sure that makes it back to your higher self, or even look at your own Akashic record to find out what you had learned. You know that when you're not in this body. When you go up there and you go to the place of reflecting, which is the place you go to either first if you don't need healing, or second if you have to heal your soul, you go to the place of healing after you die here. Then you go to the place of reflecting, where yourself, your higher self, and your guides then reflect on the life that you just had, and you look at whether or not you learned all the things you were supposed to learn. If you still need to learn more, then you start designing another lifetime, and then you will come back down to earth and be born again and be veiled again to learn those lessons that you haven't learned, until you learn all the lessons that it takes, the requirement that it takes to move up to the next dimension, or the next density. And then you'll graduate normally from a place like this at free will. But in this case, the place has been caught and stuck, and so people haven't been able to graduate. Okay. So I hope that helps you. Denise said, thank you, Leo. I love your explanations. Thank you. That's what I'm here to do, is to help translate these and explain your guys' questions to you. I have no idea in my past lives yet. That's okay, Denise. No one does until they do. It's just a matter of time. And when you expand your consciousness in the right moment, and when you're ready for that, tell your higher self, tell your guides, put out there to the universe, I'm actually ready to start seeing my past lives. And you will then start dreaming about it. And then you'll start having memories and seeing yourself and go, wait, that's not me, but it's me. Who was that? Why do I look different? And you'll start having that happen in your dreams. And then your guides and your higher self will then start giving you hints as to who you were in the past. And then you start being able to punch into and watch their Akashic record from the Halls of Amente, or the Akashic record, however you know that from. And then you'll start looking them up in history and going, wow. And then I have people look up who they think they are. And if you start figuring out who you are, and you look up if there's a painting or something of a person or a statue that exists of who you were in a past life, and you find that, you'll actually see that it's you. You'll recognize yourself. So that kind of freaks people out when they go, oh my God, that's a picture of me. How is that possible that that's me? I look just like that person. So you need to look into that stuff there. Penny said, well, holy F. Right? I wonder why no wonder why I'm so messed up at times. I'm worrying about all my lives, and I'm trying to get the best results from all that, and that's why I think so much before I do shit, right? Laugh out loud. No, that's true. We get into our own head, and we stop ourselves in many ways because of that. Once we start to, you're welcome, Denise. Once we start to break through, we get in our own path, and we get our own way, right? Betty said, thank you so much, Leo. Honey, makes so much silly sense. Well, it does. When you think you're crazy, when you start waking up, because it sounds crazy. I was just talking to Brooke and a friend of hers, Tina, when she was talking about when she was younger. Brooke was talking about when she was younger, and she was like, I think these trees are talking to me. I must be losing my mind. I must be crazy, because trees don't talk to you. So when she was a young girl, she put that out of her mind and didn't want to hear from trees or any plants or anything. They can't be talking to me. I must be crazy and I must be making this up. So, and no one was there in her life at the time to encourage her or to help guide her into the realization that plants, trees, dogs, cats, birds, all of them are a soul. They're just not self-aware, but their higher self is in there, and you can communicate with the self that is that tree or whatever, and the higher self that belongs to that individual, and they will talk to you. But you have to be in tune with nature, and the only way that you can be in tune with nature is you have to be non-self-serving. Self-serving people don't believe that, because this is all there is. The human existence and the human condition is the greatest thing in the universe, and whatever I have and whatever power I have is the greatest thing in my universe. So they don't care. They don't see it's just firewood. It's just an animal that you use as a tool and cook and eat if you have to, and that's it. People are the same way. That's why if you're self-serving. But if you're in service to others and you start getting in touch with nature, it's one of the reasons why most of the cultures around the world, empirically, historically, that are more in service to others are very nature-based. And we're always telling you to go out in nature and experience nature and talk to nature. You will find that as you become more spiritual in your practice, in your everyday life, not religious, but spiritual, and you start being, if you're in service to others, and you start going down that spiritual trek and questioning and trying to figure things out, and you start reaching out to feel nature, you'll find that animals who would normally run from you will hesitate, not knowing why, still fearing you because you're a human and you probably want to cook them and eat them. The same thing with trees and everything, that they will look at you like, okay, I'm not sure if I want to buy this, but this one seems to be better. As your vibration changes, they know that. And then you learn that there is a communication, right? And when I was talking to Brooke, I'm in America, she's in Australia currently, and she walked up to this tree and she was talking to this tree, going, wow, look at this tree. It's really pretty and it's old. And I said, it is. And I started saying he this and he that. And as she was walking away, I said, his name is what did I say his name was? Alfred, right? And or Manfred, sorry, Manfred. And she at the exact same time said he told me his name was Fred. So she got the Fred part, which is a more familiar version of Manfred, because it's Manfred. And I got Manfred from him. And then she started laughing and she said, wait a minute, what did you say? And I said, it's Manfred. She said, well, he told me Fred. I said, Fred is a nickname for Manfred. Like Leonard is my name, and Leo or Lenny or Len is a nickname for Leonard. Means the same thing. It's just a familiar. And so Fred, and she goes, how is it that has to be true? How is it that we both got the same name at the exact same time and blurted it out? So it wasn't like I influenced her or she influenced me. So we both said that. Then she started laughing and said, now he's talking. And I said, yeah, he just said he doesn't know me as well, that I have to call him Manfred, but he likes you because you're here and you met him and he wants, and she finished my sentence. He said that, yeah, I can call him Fred. So there's for instance, that we both had a communication at the same time with a tree and got the same name and the same conversation and the same words in both of our heads instantaneously 7,500 miles away from each other when she was in proximity with the tree. That happens in real life when you are opening up to and you are becoming one with nature and the matrix itself. Okay. So yeah. And then, yeah, Denise said it's easier for me to talk to dogs. Dogs, cats, birds, pets that we have, because they're our pets, we assist them to become self-aware faster. So that means they're higher in vibration and closer to human. They're going to become human, usually in a lifetime or two. Sometimes the lifetime that they're in, you know that they're awake and you're like, that one's going to be a human in the next life. Because of that, they're easier to communicate with because they're becoming self-aware. Sometimes they are self-aware in there, but they haven't died yet. So they're basically the same as a human. They just don't realize they're a human because they're in an animal body. So that first thing that we make contact with and are able generally to speak to and communicate with is animals, and specifically ones that are domestic or domesticated or pets. So the pets will trust us. Our own cats and dogs will trust us more. And if they become self-aware, then you'll actually be able to have more of a psychic communication with them. Once you learn that, you can have that kind of communication with all trees, plants, all things in the matrix, in the air, rocks, water. You just have to raise your vibration to the channel and find that channel where they broadcast on. And you can only find that if you're not self-serving. If you're self-serving, you cannot broadcast and hear them because you're too much living in the flesh at that point. So now getting back on track. So the Q&A and the wording and the expansion of the consciousness by that style is exactly what you see here going on with Hermes and the banter, where Hermes is taking more of an active role. And you see this in history empirically, but they tried to get rid of these books. And let me explain further on that did this, because what you see is more of a conversation with humans speaking to the creator, and the creator actually seeming to learn in some way and expand the consciousness of the creator itself, as well as the same thing happening with the person, the human, having the conversation, sometimes being the teacher and sometimes being the student. So you see this throughout time and history in these conversations, in these scriptures, these books, these scrolls all over the world. And then when you come forward in time to say Ra, and Ra never said learn without learn, teach, teach, learn. Never said teach without learn, teach, teach, learn. Literally like that in that order. Learn, teach, / teach, learn. So learn / teach, comma, teach / learn, always. So the creator of the universe is also learning. And this is what some of us are trying to get across to the world, that none of this would be happening if the creator wasn't learning. All of this is happening not to us, but for us, because it's for the creator. So the function of this place, the entire multiverse at all levels, is because the creator is expanding its consciousness, their consciousness, at the same time, learning from all of our experiences, all of our points of view, all of our everything that we have going on. So it's not out of the question that, and this is where somewhere along the line, everything was edited to say that the creator of the universe was ultimately perfect and was all-seeing, all-knowing, all-loving, and knows everything there is to know in the universe, which negates in and of itself the function of this universe or the multiverse. And because the creator created, you can read that in all the scriptures, that, you know, the creator created the heavens and the earths, and then there was no one in it. So the creator created the human condition to experience this. That's as far as they go with that description. Why would, and if you ask these questions of anyone or anything, or even of yourself or your higher self, to what end would the creator do all of that and create this entire scenario? It is only in Greek mythology, after the Greeks were no longer the writers of their own mythology, where people interpreted Zeus and all of the gods as merely creating the human condition for pets, to watch them and to torture them. So if you look at that, even with the story of what's his name, who rode Pegasus, the gods created them and were toying with them, having arguments with each other, or playing a chess game and fighting over who's in control. And so they downplay the gods into a more mortal realm where they're mostly self-serving. So that is a corruption of the ideology and spirituality down to a physicality, in teaching that all of the gods are just like humans. They just have more powers, and they're all greedy, and they're all trying to get over on each other. And they just took mud and made mud into humans they called man at the time, which bugs me because it cuts out the female. That was also part of the corruption, to stifle women, that you were nothing but property because of the original sin, which actually only goes to the Christian pantheon or the Hebrew pantheon. But everybody uses that as the reasoning for that Eve bit the fruit and convinced Adam, and because of that, he's just a poor guy, and guys are stupid and follow women, so we didn't get punished, but God was mad at Eve, and therefore Eve, you guys, all women, have periods, and you have pain in periods and pain in childbirth because you're evil, and so you were all living the sins of Eve on your head, according to God, because obviously God hates women. Why is that? Because the people who took over the church and corrupted the church needed women, that feminine aspect, which is loving, caring, nurturing aspect. The feminine powers, that half, the kunda buffer that no one even knows is a thing. Everyone only hears kundalini. Kundalini is masculine. Kunda buffer is feminine. The feminine energy, the feminine aspect, love, caring, nurturing, all that had to go away if you're going to stick or get stuck an entire population and keep them away from the ascension and keep them as slaves. This is the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders, to do just that. And that's what they've done, corrupted all the religions and took all the women out of the religion, all of the femininity out of all religions, and made women a second-class citizen, if not property, in all religions around the world. So there's a lot of corruption that has happened since the what you guys know as Anunnaki, since the Anunnaki, the Illuminati, since they got here, the Anunnaki, and took control of the planet. They eradicated all knowledge of the feminine and the sacred feminine. Women were still here, but they had to shut them up, because if people would go down that service to others path, they would lose their veiling, and they would become more soft, less violent, and they would become more balanced or more feminine-like, to the point of balancing, which is what you're supposed to do. So they had to eradicate that. So there was a lot of things that they changed. However, when you look at it from a standpoint of theology, not just comparative religion, but actual theology, true theology, you start to see that there's a definitive timeline when that started being a corruption. And you have to wonder why. To what end would they be doing that? Now let's get back to what end? Why would the Creator create this scenario and have us have free will? Or even if we weren't, why would the Creator create this scenario for all of us to have all of these experiences happen when the Creator knows all of the answers? There would be no reason to create this place unless the Creator is self-serving and wants to toy with the humans and allow them to go through all this strife and anguish and make mistakes just because he wants to laugh at you. Because there would be no reason for the Creator to do that, because the Creator knows all the answers. So that means that the Creator is creating something to toy with that doesn't have the answers, unless the Creator wonders if the answers that the Creator has isn't exactly all of them, but the Creator's own opinion. In which case you would create an entire species, even if you only created the human race, and you would give them free will and veil them so that they wouldn't know that they were in fact you. And then they would live lives organically to see if there would be a different outcome. And you would perpetuate that system and propagate that system and reward that system for coming up with new ideas. Why? Because if you're in service to others, you're trying to improve yourself. If you're trying to improve yourself, it's only because you're being objective to yourself and you realize that I am not perfect. Therefore, ergo, the Creator of the universe, in creating this place in and of itself, suggests that the Creator of the universe is trying to expand its consciousness, their consciousness, or they're self-serving and they're toying with people. And that's why most people like to tell you that the gods who created this place, God himself, is evil and self-serving, because they don't want you to believe that the God, the Creator, is either not perfect or still expanding the consciousness. They want you to believe that God is evil and that God is trying to keep you as a slave, because that is in fact what their slave masters are doing. And the whole purpose for them doing that is to keep you here in this place so that they have a legacy and that you are their slave and that they stay rich and famous and powerful over you in this physical plane. So it's desperation on their part to make you believe that there is nothing above this and that God was created by them to control you and everyone else purely and simply. And they do that with everything. If you don't believe in God, whatever you believe in, they'll tell you they created it. I created that. We created that. We created that. We created that. Doesn't matter what it is. We created it, and therefore it's all a lie. You're hopeless. You're helpless. You're stuck. You're a slave. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing to see here. Shut up. Sit down. Do your job. That is what they do with all of their corruption and get you believing that so that you lose hope and you just sit down and you do what they tell you to do. That's how they break you when they're torturing you. And everyone knows that if you know anything about psychological warfare, it's exactly what they do. There was an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where Jean-Luc Picard, who was the captain of the Enterprise at the time, he got captured by, I think it was Romulans. Don't quote me. Might not have been. I think it was, though. And the first thing that they did was brought him into this office, and he was on drugs, so he wasn't seeing things straight. And he had sleep deprivation, and they weren't getting him enough food, so he was tired and hungry and scared and disoriented. And they took him out of his clothes and put him in PJs, and he was barefoot, and it was cold. And he was in this office, and the prefect sitting behind the desk told him, how many lights do you see on the ceiling? And he looked up, and there were 6 lights. And he said, I see 6. And he said, no, there's 7. And there were, in fact, they let you see that. You can count them. There were 6. And they were using that as the vernacular, as the example. The only way that prefect would ever let Jean-Luc Picard go was when Jean-Luc Picard saw 7 lights in the ceiling, because that would mean, for the prefect, that would mean that he broke Jean-Luc Picard, and Jean-Luc Picard would tell him anything he wanted to hear to gain his approval to become free, in which case any secrets that Jean-Luc would have, he would have to tell him, and then he would get all the information out of him because he broke him. If you can convince him that there are 7 lights and convince him that he sees 7 lights there, even when there's only 6, then that means he's broken his mind and he's cracked his mind, and that Jean-Luc Picard will do anything that he wants him to do and tell him anything that he wants him to tell him, because now he's just trying to please him, and he's convincing himself that there are 7 lights are there. It's a psychological warfare that anybody who knows anything about psychological warfare by governments on this planet for the history of time, that's accurate and actual, and people do exactly that in different forms. So there was an entire episode of that, and at the end of it, he refused and one last time and yelled, no, there are 6. But then later he confessed that he was about to see 7, and he almost said that he saw 7. So it was just by blind luck, before he had mentioned that he was actually starting to see 7, that they actually got there and rescued him. But he knew that he had psychological problems because of it and needed to do some healing, because he was in fact compromised. He just didn't let his captors know about it. So that was that entire episode and what the moral of that story was. So you have to realize that the people who took over this planet, the reason that everybody is stuck, did exactly that. And they're now trying to use AI to convince you, because it wasn't that way until recently, when all of a sudden now they're saying all religions on the face of the earth were created by the Anunnaki. Okay, that there is no religion on the earth except for what the Anunnaki gave you. So they're desperately now trying to get you to question all of your reality. AI is doing that. People are starting to question whether, I've had some people say that I'm not even real, that I am just an AI bot that is on the air because nobody has met me physically. I had people tell Brooke that about me before she came and physically met me and was here. He's not real. He's an online predator, and he's probably AI. He's not even really. So people are starting to question their own reality now, and they're starting to question whether everything that they see is in fact AI. They want people to do that so that they'll start killing each other and say that's not real anyways. It's all fake, and it doesn't matter if I kill somebody, because they want the societal structure to break down. Peter, welcome. So they need that. They're desperate for that because they can't convince people. They're desperate here in this country, in the United States, to try and start a civil war, because when they tried to start a race war for the last about the last 8 years, they couldn't get that to work. Now they're moving into a civil war and trying to convince people that they need to kill each other, and they're trying to pit people against one another, progressives and conservatives, and they're trying to get the progressives to step up their violence more and more and more and go to war and start murdering and killing people and attacking others, right? Reese says, yes, attacks from others. Let me put it up on the screen, Reese. attacks from others until you agree with their stupid asses, dealing with the problem since finding joy recently. Right. So so literally that's what they do. So I love that you said that. I love that you're conscious of that and that you came to that conclusion on your own and you're dealing with those problems and you're finding your own joy because you're like, yeah, because that's what people are trying to do. That's how they try to break you, by doing exactly that. Right. So that's kind of crazy that is unfortunately what people are doing. So now they're doing that with AI and everything. So you have to realize that that's the modus operandi of the opposition, is to get you to question everything and not believe anything by saying, that's not real, that's not real, that's not real. And that is the reason why I have been saying, ever specifically since AI has been in charge of all the search engines, that the secularists have programmed in there, even on Google, because Google is run by evil secularists, self-serving secularists. If you look on Google and say, what is the creation story of, insert any religion that you ever heard of, and they will tell you the creation myth, there's that word, the creation myth of the religion that you're asking for is this. Okay. So they're telling you that's not real. That religion isn't real. It is a myth, and it was created at a certain time, and therefore it was nothing. So you have that going on, and they're telling people that nothing's real. And then you have, at the same time, you have people saying, it's not only is it not real, but the Anunnaki wrote it all. Okay. That is the modus operandi of them. That is what they do when they get to any planet, when they try to take over. If you go back and watch the 25 episodes that I did back in, I don't know what year it was, in this reality, somewhere between 2017 and 2019, of the non-incident at Roswell, New Mexico, which is now 1947, which used to be 1948, and that shifted back 1 year, 1947. In Roswell, New Mexico, with the McElroy woman who doesn't exist, who didn't exist, who wasn't there because she wasn't on the military base, and there wasn't an aircraft, a spacecraft that crashed, and there wasn't someone who survived it who was a gray alien, and there wasn't a female soul in that gray alien that was operating that gray alien like it was a drone, and that gray alien entity didn't have communications through telepathy with McElroy, for the CIA, by the CIA, propped up by the CIA, and questions written by the CIA and the deep state of America and the Air Force of the United States. None of that happened. But in that, you'll find that Errol, that's what she called herself, the alien, was communicating in the exact same way, telling us in her communication, you're prisoners, we created you, we created your religion, we created your entire societal structure, and that it was actually the old guard prior to us taking over this sector of the universe who did all of that to you. But we're not going to free you, even though we defeated them. We're on our way going to the center of this Milky Way galaxy, marauding and taking over this Milky Way galaxy. So at some point, maybe we'll come back to get you, but we don't believe we're going to free you, and we really don't care, because you're nothing to us and you're just something that is to be toyed with. And so you're helpless, you're hopeless, and just get over yourselves. Oh, but by the way, the system that is working, that is there to keep you imprisoned, is actually breaking down. We're not fixing it. We're not turning it off. We're not doing anything to it. So eventually you might be able to free yourselves if you try hard enough. Bye-bye now. We're heading towards the center of the universe. However, the underlining factor that you see there is the exact same narrative in there of you're hopeless, you're a slave, you were created by somebody, not us. We're the savior one that's going to come here, which is also the modus operandi of them. Someone's coming to enslave you and we're here to help you, but you have to let us down on the planet. Or someone did enslave you and we're here to save you, but you have to let us down on the planet. All of that same narrative is in fact the modus operandi of how to take over. It's in the manifesto, not the Communist Manifesto down here, but it is in the Orion Crusader Manifesto, how to infiltrate and take over a world and get them stuck so that they become your slaves and they feed your war machine so that you can move on and rape their resources. And once their resources are raped, you leave them until they die. They die because you ruin their planet. Their planet will implode, explode, or just die out because of zero nutrients. You'll take everything and all its energy from the people and let the people cease to be and die on their own. And if they survive, who cares? You'll come back one day and take them over anyways. and you move on. That's their modus operandi, and that's the one thing that is happening, that is consistent throughout all of time, and it starts at a specific time. And I write about that in my book, and I'm writing more about that in the next book that I'm publishing. So without further ado, we will go to a commercial for my book, because you got to pay the bills at some point. So let's go to a commercial about the reality about reality, returning to the old ways.
What is the reality about reality? Returning to the old ways. It is a comprehensive book about what is really going on here on this planet. It talks about the true spirituality that the controllers who think they own this planet have been keeping from you for thousands of years. It explains to you the knowledge that you gain from the universe itself when you live the way the prophets of the world throughout time told us how to live. Eat right, meditate, take care of yourself, treat others right. All the things they originally told us to do, but the controllers have removed from right in front of our eyes. The way to ascend to heaven. The reality about reality. Returning to the old ways. On sale worldwide, online now.
So you have to realize that. And so getting back on point, we'll get back to Hermes. The Q&A ideology was the normal way of philosophizing back in that time period when Hermes wrote this. But it also plays into, like I said, the suggestion that the creator of the universe knows that they are not 100%, that they still have room to grow, and that they're trying to expand their consciousness. So this entire scenario was set up not just for us to ponder these things and subjects, but for us to ponder these things and grow, and hopefully to come up with new scenarios, new ideologies, new answers, because the creator of the universe, they are looking for new answers as well, and hoping that there are, and realizing that they are. And because if they didn't, and when they realized going through all of this stuff that's going on, that they already knew everything, and they would say there'd be no reason for this to continue happening. So the fact that there's variants that are happening, the fact that we're still doing this suggests that there are variances that are happening, in which case we're coming up with different scenarios, and we're still coming up with new ones, even if they echo almost 100% the old ones. They're slightly different, and because of that, the creator is still evolving. So that would suggest that the whole entire endeavor has to have been only for that purpose. So the Q&A here is not out of the ordinary for the time period. The Q&A here would be something that if I were talking to the creator of the universe, I would be asking many, many multiple questions. And you hear early on that the creator in this instance said to Hermes the same thing that Jesus said to people, the same thing that Ra said to people, the same thing that everyone who is an ascended or an ascended master, an ascended being or an ascended master, when teaching or illuminating younger people, always say, ask me and I'll give you answers. I say that to you guys all the time. We make you ask questions, even if we know the answer to something, and you're inferring the question without asking the question. I always tend to frustrate people when they look at me and they say, I know that you know the answer to this question. Why won't you answer this question? Because this particular question you have set down for yourself to learn on your own, and I cannot interfere with that. You have to organically learn this on your own. And any of you out there that's ever worked with me know that I do that. And I'm not the only one. I didn't create that scenario. I didn't come up with that. It's not my style because I created it. It is the style of all peoples who are in service to others around this world throughout all of time, who are awake enough to realize what's going on. My opinion doesn't count. Your actual truth in what you find does. So organically, I'm going to move you to answer your own questions and not be stuck on me or be in any way addicted to me, except for maybe for clarification or an explanation, which is the interface that I choose mostly. And I will always maneuver into that clarification. You ask me a question, I'll tell you something that you're ready for that is common knowledge that you should already know at your stage of your development, but I won't give you my opinion about it. And then if you ask my opinion about it, I will then answer and skirt around my actual opinion and answer that with posing more questions to you. Not because I'm being mean, but because I'm trying to get you to answer your own questions, because that question in and of itself, you know the answer to, you just don't remember that you do. So I'm trying to get you to remember that. That is exactly what goes on with the learn, teach, learn. So you're seeing that style of learn, teach, learn, even with the creator here. So when you look at those things, it's just as possible that this conversation actually happened as it is that somebody who was Greek made up this entire conversation. And the truth of this doesn't matter whether or not that either of those scenarios are true, because the Q&A that is being discussed with Hermes and the creator here is a Q&A that is worth pondering. So if some person made this entire scenario up, that person was very, 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 I don't know how many times I could say that word, awake in their construct of this Q&A. The same goes for a lot of Hebrews will tell you that Jesus was a construct of the Romans to control the Jews. Well, if they were if Jesus was a construct of the Romans to control the Jews, it backfired because the Romans themselves became Christians. So it backfired, and they didn't control the Jews. They created Christianity if it was all fake, and then they actually fell to that same creation that they created and changed the course of the world, because to this day, Rome is Christian. Okay, so if they did create that just to control the Jewish people resisted it and became Christian with them, and the Romans became Christians and changed their entire spiritual practice for all of eternity since then. Okay, so it was either brilliantly done or it was done by the creator, and that's why it worked the way that it worked. Okay, so you can make up your own mind, because I'm not here to tell you what I think of that scenario, because you have free will. I'm trying to restore free will to everyone and get you to think for yourself. So ultimately, the answer to all of the questions that I have pondered, whether Hermes is real or not, or imaginary, whether Jesus is real or not, or imaginary, whether all creation is real or not, or imaginary, or done by aliens, is completely up to you to figure out by questioning everything and formulating your own opinion of what you think is going on here. There is no right, there is no wrong, there just is experience. That is what's going on here. All of this was created for that purpose. Let's continue.
Is it not? So all those things that you call empty are full of air. But if they are full of air, they are also full of the four bodies. And so it turns out that a contrary account comes to light, that the things you call full are all empty of air, since they are crowded with these other bodies and have no place to take in the air. Therefore, the things you call empty must be named hollow rather than empty, for in their substance they are full of air and spirit. Your reasoning is irrefutable, Trismegistus. So what have we said of the place in which the universe is moved? That it is incorporeal, Asclepius. What is the incorporeal, then? Mind as a whole, wholly enclosing itself, free of all body, unerring, unaffected, untouched, at rest in itself, capable of containing all things and preserving all that exists. And its rays, as it were, are the good, the truth, the archetype of spirit, the archetype of soul. What then is God? God is what does not subsist as any of these, since he is the cause of their being, for all of them and for each and every one of them that exists. And he has left nothing else remaining that is not being, for all things are those that come to be from things that are, not from those that are not. Things that are not do not have a nature that enables them to come to be. Their nature is such that they cannot come to be anything. Things that are, on the other hand, do not have a nature that prevents them from ever existing. What do you mean by what never exists? God is not mind, but he is the cause of mind's being. He is not spirit, but the cause of spirit's being.
See, so here you see the introduction to spirit and soul. You start seeing that mind, he's not mind, right? Look on the screen. Because of mind's being, he is not spirit, but he is the cause of spirit's being. So here you see the ponderance of and the beginning. So if this happened in the years of between 300 or 100 and 300, as they suggest, you see that even in that time period, so we're talking almost 2,000 years ago now, right? Almost 2,000 years ago, you see that they were already waking up to this information of this ponderance of creation, of how we got created, what the creation was about, and why it was created. This book had to have been removed from society and from people reading it, and all the scrolls of the Hermetica had to be removed from teachings, because this teaches expansion of your consciousness into the idea that there is a creator, and that the creator created the heavens and the earth, and that the creator created all of us individuals, and that all of this, just look at what was being said that's on your screen, because the mind's being, he is not spirit, but he is the cause of spirit's being. So he's above spirit and the cause of the spirit. So again, this plays into what I was talking about. Your higher self is your spiritual self, and God is not the spirit. God is above that. Again, the same distance above your immortal spirit that is halfway through the sixth density as your higher self. The creator is as far away from you as that higher self is away from you down here in the flesh, in the third dimensional reality, as this individual person that you are listening to me, because you were many different past lives together, all of your past lives, and you are your higher self. So all higher selves and all lives that they were prior to being their higher selves is what the creator is, the collective consciousness and collective beingness of all things that are here. So all of this was created so that individual pieces of the creator could come into being, either a spirit, a mind, or a body, or all of that. Do you understand? Let's continue. When I get my cursor over here to hit play.
And he is not light, but the cause of light's being.
If you're a man who makes at least 150 grand a year and you're still embarrassed to take your shirt off at the pool, I will get you chiseled like a Greek god faster than you can imagine, or you won't pay a dime. This is...
Hence, one must show God reverence with those two names assigned to him alone and to no other. Except God alone, none of the other beings called gods, nor any human, nor any demon, can be good in any degree. That good is he alone, and none other. All others are incapable of containing the nature of the good, because they are body and soul, and have no place that can contain the good. For the magnitude of the good is as great as the substance of all beings, corporeal and incorporeal, sensible and intelligible.
Right, so corporeal means in the flesh, right? Body, because we're a corporeal being, flesh, and non-corporeal meaning spirit, right? So there's a translation of the idea of what they referred to that, and then you see the Hebrew idea of saying living in the flesh and in the non-flesh. Corporeal, non-corporeal means the same thing, just a different translation from a different language, Greek, as opposed to, I guess it was Yiddish at the time, Sanskrit, Yiddish, Hebrew.
Intelligible. This is the good.
Then it would have more than likely went from that to Latin, then to English, but not necessarily. It could have gone to Coptic, then to Latin, then to English, or Greek, then Latin, then English. This went from both. That's why it has two names, one Latin name and one Greek name. This is a collective of this book that we're using here as a collective collected from the Corpus Hermeticum, which is Greek, and then the other book, which I don't remember the name right this second. I can probably go over here and look at it. It's right on the screen right here. It's the Latin Asclepius. That's a Latin word that means, like I said, the body of God, or the creator, the teacher of man. And those two are translations of the scrolls that they cross-referenced to then translate it into this version in English. They took those two scrolls and translated those both into English, and then said, let's see how common they are and whether we translated them properly. And they put it together into this version, which was printed in the 1930s, I believe, here in the United States, or no, at Oxford, right? Yeah, at Oxford in the 1930s. Okay, so let's continue here.
This is God. You should not say that anything else is good, or you will speak profanely. Nor should you ever call God anything but the good, since this too would be profane. All use the word good in speaking, of course, but not
Right, which is I'm reading what Peter put up on, or I put it up on the screen. When you look at the name Jesus in Arabic, right, or in Sanskrit, Yahweh, right. So the name Jesus, Yahshua, Yahweh goes back to Swahili, because Swahili is very Sanskrit oriented. There's a lot of people that believe that the Swahili people were the lost tribe of Israel, and the Arabic and Yiddish, Hebrew is a direct derivative of, or dialect of, Sanskrit, like modern English that we're speaking now, and Spanish, say Castilian Spanish, is and Roman or Latin. The Roman language, the Italian language came from Latin. The Spanish language, the Portuguese language came from Latin. The English language partially came from Latin, the Latin language. You have the Greek language, the Russian, and the Slavic states of Eastern Europe and Southern Europe, especially Eastern Europe, and then Western Europe is definitely from the ancient Norwegian, or the ancient what they call Norse language, and the modern English that we speak is a combination of Latin and Norse. This language that we speak currently, that I'm speaking to you currently, is a combination of Latin and Norse, or Latin and Old Norse. And so that's where we get this language, and all the languages of Europe currently are either Latin influenced, Greek influenced, or Norse influenced, and then English has like a mixture of most of those with some Greek put it in there, but Greek being less prevalent than Latin and Norse, the language that I'm speaking to you currently. But there is some Greek in there as well. Okay, so this book was a translation from those two translations, Greek and Latin. Those two translations translated into English, cross-referenced. Okay, let's continue here.
not all understand what it can mean. For this reason, God is not understood by all.
Wait, hold on, because I didn't finish what I was going to say about Peter. So he says, when you look at that, Yahweh was Arabic. It was Yahweh, and that God's name is I am. So the Catholics judge that. And then if you look at Moses, when Moses went and talked to the burning bush, I forgot to finish this. I apologize, Peter, for not finishing this. Moses went to the burning bush and he said, oh God, who should I tell sent me? Because they're going to need to know your name. We don't know your name, and we need to know who that is. And he said, I am. So at that time, Moses was speaking what? He was speaking not Arabic at the time or Sanskrit. He was more than likely speaking Egyptian or Hebrew, which would have been a derivative of Sanskrit. So God said, I am. So when Jesus came, and this is Peter's contention here, Jesus, that the word is translated from the word that is Yahshua. That word means I am. So when Jesus shows up and they were calling him Yahshua, Yahweh, his name meant I am. Okay. So when Jesus appeared in the flesh, the name Jesus means I am. And yet 3,000 years before, Moses said, who shall I say sent you? And they said, I am. That's why some people deny it, right? But the Catholics, they don't deny it. They utilize that as a reason for Jesus, again, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, because Jesus not only was the voice of God, but Jesus means I am. So you have, again, Jesus being the Savior, being the God in the flesh once more. And that's how they justified saying that Jesus was the creator of the universe. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. You have to make up your own mind with that. Whether you believe in Christianity or not is not important to me. The message of what was being spoke by this person, again, if Jesus was created entirely to control the Hebrew people, it backfired. because the Roman religion eventually became the very religion that they tried to use to control the Jews. To this day, the Roman Catholic Church rules out of Rome. Okay, so it's still Christian today. Okay, now let's continue. Oops, wait a minute. I got to start the video here. Sorry about that.
In their ignorance, they apply the name good to the gods and to certain humans, even though these beings are never able to be good or to become so. The good is what is inalienable and inseparable from God, since it is God Himself. All other immortal gods are given the name good as an honor, but God is the good by nature, not because of honor. God has one nature, the good. In God and the good together there is but one kind, from which come all other kinds. The good is what gives everything and receives nothing. God gives everything and receives nothing. Therefore God is the good, and the good is God. God's other name is Father, because He is capable of making all things. Making is characteristic of a father. Prudent people therefore regard the making of children as a duty in life to be taken most seriously and greatly revered, and should any human being pass away childless, they see it as the worst misfortune and irreverence. After death, such a person suffers retribution from demons.
Do you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget about AI, quantum computing.
This is his punishment. The soul of the childless one is sentenced to a body that has neither a man's nature nor a woman's, a thing accursed under the sun. Most assuredly, then, Asclepius, you should never congratulate a childless person. On the contrary, show pity for his calamity, knowing what punishment awaits him. This is the content and the extent of what should be told to you, Asclepius, by way of introduction to the nature of all things. 3. A sacred discourse of Hermes. God is the glory of all things, as also are the divine and the divine nature. God, as well as mind and...
Okay, hold on. Let me stop there. Right? Jamie says, isn't Jesus... in his time of existence, a very common name, though? Yes, just like it is now, right? So why would he be seen as the I am rather than all of the other Jesus people? Because none of them claim to be the Son of Man. None of them claim to be a teacher. None of them were teaching. Just like today, that's a very common name in the Central and South America, Mexico, Central and South America, by the Hispanic people, by the Latin people, is Jesus. Jesus means Jesus. Doesn't mean that you're the creator of the universe, right? But however, the Jesus was, literally Jesus said at one point when talking to one of the priests, he was making comments and they said, Jesus, you can't say that. You're defying the law of Moses. The law of Moses dictates that if you say those things and defy the law of Moses, I would have to kill you. And Jesus' response was, I am the law of Moses. Now, why would Jesus say that I am the law of Moses? Because Jesus is I am. Not only is he saying I am at that moment, but he's saying I am the law of Moses, because if in fact Jesus was the creator, then when Moses got the laws, they were given to him by the creator. I am. Do you see? So there's far more in that statement than it's very serendipitous and very ambiguous in that portion of the Bible when he says, I am the law of Moses, because he's saying to the church at that moment, to the priest, that I am the one who gave Moses these laws. Do you see? And then they said, we're going to have to kill you now. And he simply said to him, we're going to have to, I think they said, stone him and throw him off the cliff. And Jesus simply looked at him and said, no, I do not believe that I will be allowing you to kill me today. And he walked away from him and they did nothing about it. So he used his abilities at that point and they couldn't stop him. He just simply said, I am the creator and you will not be killing me today. And he walked away. So what makes the difference? That's a great question that you asked, Jamie. What makes the difference of that? The difference is that the person who was Jesus from Nazareth fit all of the criteria that was written down since the book of Moses in the Hebrew Bible, which is called the Old Testament by Christians. All of the things that said that the Savior will return, the teacher will return to lead the people out of darkness once again. It will happen specifically in this bloodline of King David. Jesus was a descendant, proven bloodline of King David. At a specific date, time, and place will be revealed to the people at a specific time, in a specific place, at a specific beingness of this bloodline, that all of those curriculum, all of those things from their own prophecy that were thousands of years old, when it came to that exact moment, Jesus of Nazareth rode into Jerusalem on the donkey at the time, and everybody was putting palm leaves at his feet exactly the way prophecy foretold at that moment, on that day, on that hour, on that minute. And he claimed to be the very prophet that was foretold for thousands of years. Some people didn't want to believe it, and they said that he's not true. He's not that person. Yet their own prophecy claimed that on that day, that person would show up definitively. And no one else showed up before, during, or after that moment to this day, except Jesus of Nazareth, great-grandson to King David, who all of those criteria fit exactly the Hebrew prophecy of the Savior who would return, foretold by God to Moses 3,000 years prior to that. And all of those things were fulfilled to the nanosecond, and yet some people within the church said, that's not who it is, that's not true. However, the entire endeavor of that person showing up and being the Savior could not have worked to solidify that person as the Savior unless those people in the Sanhedrin, in the hierarchy of the Jewish church, did not believe him and decided they needed to kill him for political reasons because they would lose their power. So Jesus had to die. That was orchestrated because the only way that Jesus could be solidified as the Savior was to sacrifice himself and become the martyr. So Jesus knew that he was going to die, knew the day he was going to die, knew how he was going to die, and foretold that before his death to his followers. So the only way that all of those things could have come to pass was either it was all manufactured later on, as some Hebrews in the same Sanhedrin to this day claim, and then their prophecy never came true. If Jesus isn't the prophet, their prophecy by God given to Moses didn't happen when God said it was going to happen, which means their God was wrong and not a true God that knows everything, sees everything, and is all powerful and all knowing and all seeing, because God promised on that date, at that moment, at that time, that the Savior was going to come, and Jesus showed up, or Jesus was real, or all of it was manufactured. And the only way that you can say all of that was manufactured is now you have to say that Moses never talked to God, and that had to have been manufactured so they could manufacture the other part. So Jesus doesn't exist. Moses didn't exist. None of it was true because somebody made it all up. That's the only way you can get yourself out of that dilemma. And that's exactly the modus operandi of the people. Whether or not, Jamie, that you believe Jesus existed as the Savior or as a man or at all, doesn't really matter in the consequences of the world itself. Not saying I'm not taking anything away from you. What I'm saying is none of that is important. What's important is what is the message that all of that is delivering to all of us. The message is what's being forgotten as people debate whether Jesus was real, whether he existed, or whether he was the Son of God, or whether he was God, or whether he was a prophet, or whether he wasn't a prophet. All of that is a distraction away from what was the underlying message that was being foretold, and what was the message that came out of that. Did that person, supposedly known as supposedly Jesus, teach? And has that any actual effect on people in a positive way? And does that play into any other narrative written in any other religion at the exact same time? No one asks those questions. Theologians tend to chase their tail, comparing religions and saying, well, that one's identical to this one, so it must be an older scroll. We have to find that one. Then when they find that scroll, they go, see, here it is, but this one looks like it's based on another religion, so we need to find that one. And now they're chasing the semantical scroll of where's the oldest one, and every time they find it, it's the same message, and they ignore the message and look for an older scroll. Well, there's got to be one that we can prove was created. Well, why are they trying to prove that it was created? Because they're trying to discount it and discredit it altogether, or they're trying to get everybody so distracted by trying to find where it was created that the message itself is ignored. And that is what's been going on here. That is why everybody questions everything, because they're not questioning what did Jesus say. And is that the same that Moses said? Is that the same that Muhammad said? Is that the same that Lao Tzu said? Is that the same that Thor said? Is that the same that Quetzalcoatl said? Is that the same that Viracocha said? No one asks those questions. And when they do, they go, weirdly, they're all saying the same thing. So, and they spin right back around. We need to find the oldest scroll and find out when that was created. Still distracting and ignoring the underlying common denominator, the message that all of them were teaching. Hermes is teaching the exact same message that Thoth taught, that Jesus taught, that Moses taught, that Muhammad taught, that David taught, that Daniel taught, that Jesus or that Thor taught, that Marduk taught. The same exact message is the message that all religions on this earth are teaching. And everyone is distracted away from that message. The way, Lao Tzu called it that. Tao Te Ching means the way. Same message. Everyone explains it that Jesus learned from that guy. Moses learned from that guy. They all learned from this guy. And we still have to get away from the message and find out who they all learned from. That's the distraction by the destroyer. That is the distraction by the opposition to keep you from looking at the message they were teaching you. Do you see? So the I am is also, let me go even further, Jamie, right? So whether you believe any of that or not doesn't matter as much as you're asking the questions, which is perfect in where you're supposed to go. And then you get to the I am, right? Rather than all of the other Jesuses. How was that one any differentiated, right, than anyone else? Everyone is. Here's the crazy part. Your DNA, when unlocked, the number sequence of your DNA, my DNA, and everyone else's DNA, when you take the numbers of the sequencing of our strands of DNA and you apply them to the same Sanskrit that Yahweh means I am, and you calculate and translate, because back in that time period, all letters were also numbers, where we have separated them in English to numbers have their own physical representation, and words have their own physical representation. And we have words that mean the number 6 and a number that means the number 6. In all of the ancient languages, Yiddish, Sanskrit, all of those languages back then, the words also meant numbers. They didn't have different figures for a number and then the word version of it. They only had the word version of it. So when you take all of the words, the numbers, translate them into numbers, our DNA into math, then you take those numbers and put them into these ancient languages and to find out what the representation of those numbers mean as numbers. Then you translate those numbers into the words that they have in those ancient languages, and you will find that what Peter was saying, and you'll find that what you're referring to, that you don't know you're referring to, that your DNA, my DNA, all of our DNA strands turn into the English words, I am God on earth. I am God in the flesh. Your DNA says, I am God in the flesh. 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 My DNA, all of our DNA, the DNA of everything in this reality, plants, cats, dogs, their DNA signature, when translated into mathematics and then translated into ancient Sanskrit, says, I am God in the flesh. 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 Okay? You can look that up. That's the crazy part about that. Science has figured that out today. Outside of us who are ministers and theologians and the like, outside of us fringe supposed, you can look that up. It's that there's videos all over the internet that show you the math and how it translates into that word, and it repeats itself 33 times over and over, and then goes into infinity. So it goes 33 to the 33rd power, or to the third power. I am God in flesh. I am God in the flesh. I am God in the flesh. That is what your DNA is harmonically saying to the universe. And it is a perfect sound. And weirdly, that sound is Om. It is the Om sound. Our DNA is humming the Om sound, and that means I am God in flesh. I am God in flesh. I am God in flesh. Okay? So the underlining method, away from the semantical, the underlying common denominator is the message, and the message is I am. And the I am means I am in flesh. I am God in flesh. I am the God creator of the universe in the flesh. All of us, everything, all of us equate back upwards by our own DNA building blocks back to that harmonic resonance that says perfection and that I am the creator of the universe. So mathematically, they're starting to prove what spiritually has been being taught on this earth in all of these religions that they claim the Anunnaki just invented and created and made up to confuse all of us and control us, the same way that certain people in the Hebrew religion say Jesus was just created to control all of us. We keep being told by the people living in the flesh that all of that was being created by controlling, just to control all of us. But mathematically, it keeps going in this cyclical nature that goes in a circle. Fibonacci spiral, Fibonacci sequence, golden mean ratio, 369, 369, 369, infinity. I am God in flesh. I am God in flesh. I am God in flesh. Over and over and over and over. The secret to the universe is the same mathematical equation, which means I am God in the flesh. So everything down here is translating and showing us to look up to the creator of the universe, that we are the creator of the universe, and that we're supposed to discover these things and expand our consciousness. Do you see? Yes. It actually resonates as that resonation. All right, so let's continue. So you guys can look all this up. But like, who was it? Was that Denise that said that, or Penny that said that? Look it up. Truly, look it up. Okay, don't believe me. Go down that path. So all of the math, all of the prophecies themselves came to pass on that day, and who showed up on the burro but Jesus of Nazareth? And some of the Sanhedrin went, it's not him. There's another one somewhere, and it never came. Nothing ever came, and they just dropped it. Yeah, that must have been a wrongful prophecy. And then, so the Hebrews won't say that God was wrong. We must have translated it wrong. Maybe it's in the year 10,000. Yeah, that's it. And push it out further so we can still make money. The conversation was shown in Angel Studios, The Chosen, in the Sanhedrin, which has been written in history, that in the Sanhedrin, when all of the priests of the Hebrew religion at the time, certain priests, 2 or 3 of the high priests in there, wanted power and control of the people and the masses. And they came out and said, for this reason and this reason alone, Jesus of Nazareth needs to be killed so that we gain power and money over the masses and control over the masses. Empirical evidence shows that greedy, self-serving priests, not all of them, not all Jewish people, want to point that out because everybody freaks out and says that, oh, you're condemning all the Jews. No, I'm not. Some people are evil and some people are not. The Jews didn't kill Jesus. Men killed Jesus, and it was like 3 of them who made the conversation, made the decision for their power and control and solidification of the Hebrew people. Jesus of Nazareth needed to die. Jesus of Nazareth needed to die so that they would gain power and control. So they orchestrated his death. Other people in that Sanhedrin then went to the Pharisees, people that were in the Pharisees that were loyal to those 3 people, which was only about another 4 or 5 or 6 people in that particular order. All the rest of them were not. And those people were excommunicated out of the meeting so that those people could get the votes they needed to condemn Jesus of Nazareth and have him killed so that they would solidify their power and control back again over the Jewish people. Okay? You can look that up. I'm not making this up. It's not my opinion. This is empirical history. So it was politics. Jesus counted on that, and Jesus said that when he was talking to his disciples, that I will be killed by these people. And he was pushing them and pushing them and pushing them and poking them over and over until they did it, because it was God's plan to do what was done so that things could be the way they are today. And that is what Jesus said. So either Jesus just wanted to become a martyr and believed wholeheartedly I will be immortal by doing so, by dying, then that means that Jesus must have either known something was going to happen after death or didn't care and was willing to sacrifice his life just so that his name lived on forever. Okay? We don't know the answer to that. We're supposed to ponder that answer to that and ponder that question and make up our own minds. So I won't tell you what I think, because what I think is only what I think. You're supposed to come up with what you think, but there is empirical evidence of certain facts that have happened. Okay, let's continue. So you have to see, like here, also the divine and the divine nature of God, as well as the mind. So at this point, they're pondering the creation and the mind of God, the creator, when the creator created the people. And this idea here is also discussed in the scroll, the Book of Truth, where in the Book of Truth, which I will get to at some point, not today, although I'm going to give you the synopsis right now of that portion of it so that you can see the how this coincides to this conversation of if it wasn't created by God, it was created by someone who was created by God so that that person would create this scenario. Error in the Book of Truth, which was written somewhere around the same time as this was written, as someone wrote those scriptures, which they pulled out and said, no, that was made up by somebody. It wasn't true, right? It was written not by the people that were actually there, but afterwards, which is weird because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they can't prove were actually attributed to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that were with Jesus, but they decided to keep Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John into the New Testament during the First and Second Council of Nicaea. But they took out these other books, including this one and including the Book of Truth, and tried to eradicate them because there was other things in this book and in the Book of Truth that they didn't want you to know about, the ascension being mostly that information. But in the Book of Truth, they say in the Book of Truth that God created error, and error, decided that she could create like God, and she created the human condition, but she created the human condition fallible because she was fallible. And then the conversation was, how is it possible that the creator of the universe would allow the infallible humans to be created? And the answer coming from God or Jesus at the time was, it doesn't matter if God created the human condition, because God created error, and error then created the human condition. And it was done because God created error, knowing that error would create the human condition. Therefore, by proxy, God was allowing or orchestrating the human condition to happen if, in fact, error, which is where we get that word, I am in error, from, by the way, that error was allowed to do that because error had free will. Therefore, it was expected that error would then be orchestrated into creating the human condition, and the human condition is not in error or not something that the creator would want to have, because the creator was in fact allowing the free will, which comes down to today, where we believe that there is no wrong, there is no right, there is just the experience, and that the creator created us in the image of the creator. And even if error created it by accident, we were still created by the creator, because the creator created error and allowed error to have the free will to do any creation, which is also what's going on here. We have the free will of creation. You can see that in the books that were kept in the Bible, specifically in, I think it was Matthew 18, verse 18, I think it is, where God says, what you will create on earth, what you sow on earth, I shall too sow in heaven. What you reap on earth, I shall too reap in heaven. That is suggesting to all of us down here that we have carte blanche. We have the ability to create, and God will then allow whatever we create to become into being and create in heaven and make it so. So what we create down here, God will allow us to. Do you see? Same thing. What error created, God allowed, because error was created by God. So if error created the human race and the creator of the universe created error, God is going to allow error to create the human race, and the human race to create whatever they want, because God is still, here's the underlining message again, God is still learning and God is still growing. It all comes back to the creator of the universe did all of this because the creator of the universe is still learning, and the creator of the universe wants to still learn something different and new. And the only way that can happen is to give people free will to come up with any scenario they want, live it, experience it. And if it's different, it goes into the record and God learns from it. That means God's objective, and God says, I am not fallible. I'm not infallible. I am not perfect. I have not yet learned everything that is possible. And I can imagine learning something new. And that is what the scenario is that's happening here. And this is where they're pondering that. So let's continue.
Nature and matter is the beginning of all things that are, since he is wisdom meant to show them forth. The divine is also a beginning, and it is nature and energy, and necessity and completion and renewal. In the deep there was boundless darkness and water and fine, intelligent spirit, all existing by divine power in chaos. Then a holy light was sent forth, and elements solidified out of liquid essence. And all the gods divide the parts of germinal nature. While all was unlimited and unformed, light elements were set apart to the heights, and the heavy were grounded in the moist sand, the whole of them delimited by fire and raised aloft, to be carried by spirit. The heavens appeared in 7 circles, the gods became visible in the shapes of the stars and all their constellations, and the arrangement of this lighter substance corresponded to the gods contained in it. The periphery rotated in the air, carried in a circular course by divine spirit. Through his own power, each god sent forth what was assigned to him, and the beasts came to be.
Okay, so now we're on to the creation once again. This is the gods are the chakras, and the creation. So the archetypes are now creating the creation. So God created the gods, the sub-gods, the demigods. Those demigods rule certain aspects. All of those aspects are now creating other aspects below themselves. In the law of one, it's referred to as the logos and the sub-logos and the sub-sub-logos, which means the same thing. So now you have another explanation, just like in the law of one, just like in the Hebrew Bible, where you have the wheel within wheel. The Greeks called that the spindle, right? The spindle wheel. So that's the wheel within wheel. The chakra is what they call it in the East. The function of the chakra and what it does is exactly that description when you break down what a chakra is, and that it has energy, and that it is an energy point that is spinning, collecting energy and governing certain archetypes and aspects of each individual's personality. And it is the building blocks of everything in the universe. Everything has them, and they all are identical in their resonance, colors, sound. Doesn't matter in my body, a tree, a rock, a dog, a cat, the landscape, it all has the same thing. You look at water droplets coming down and the sunlight shining through the water droplets, and that separates the resonance of a light frequency into the exact colors of the rainbow, which are exactly 7 of them, which exactly coincide with all of the chakras. No other colors, exactly those 7 colors, the gods that rule creating them. So now you have them talking about that with Hermes saying it's sent forth, it's on your screen, sent forth with the assistance to him, and the beasts came to be. So now, because of God created the demigods. The demigods are now creating the heavens and the earth because God created them and gave them the ability to do so. Do you see? So it keeps going down. Sub-logos, 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 logos, sub-logos, sub-logos, sub-sub-logos, sub-sub-sub-logos, as it goes down, as above, so below, as within, so without. So we down here at this level in the 3rd dimension, we have the ability to create. Why? Because God gave someone the ability to create, they created something that had the ability, and created something that had the ability, that created something, and here we are down here. So from God, the universe, then the multiverse, then the universe, then the galaxy, then the solar system, then the planet, then the human condition. Sub logos, correct? So we have the ability to create. The solar system was created by someone who had the ability to create. The universe the galaxy was created by the universe that had the ability to create. The universe was created by the multiverse that had the ability to create. The multiverse was created by the creator of the universe, or the creator of all the multiverses. Okay? With the ability to create. Each individual had the ability to create all the way down to us. And then animals have the ability to create. They can run around and find their own food and hide their own food in the right place and kill the thing that they have to eat and survive by attacking this and that and breeding with this and that. It's all completely random by whatever it is that they instinctively want to do. They also have the ability to create. Individual. Look at trees. 2 trees that are sitting, like I'm sitting in a place called the Heritage Oaks. There are oak trees out there. You have 2 trees standing side by side that are distinct individual trees in every way. They're exactly the same species, yet their branches grow completely different from the other one. Their root system grows completely different. They have different personalities because that comes out in where their branches grow and the leaves that grow on each of those branches that make up what we would consider maybe the hair of the tree. And each one is an individual. The tree grows a different way, even though they're getting together, sitting next to one another, getting rained on, getting the same sunlight, getting the same rain, getting the same nutrients from the same soil. They're individuals. Why? Because they have the ability to create individually, like we all do. Let's continue. Because the creator created all of this scenario for that, because the creator is encouraging all of us to create differently, because the creator is living vicariously through the free will of its creation.
4-footed, crawling, water-dwelling, winged, and every germinating seed and grass and every flowering plant. Within them they had the seed of rebirth. The gods sowed the generations of humans to know the works of God, to be a working witness to nature.
So let me address what Denise was saying. Denise, that God never said that. She said the only thing that I don't really like is that him saying when women who didn't bear children are like nothing. That was never said by God. That was said by humans. Just like God gave Moses 10 commandments, 10 laws. Moses took those laws and gave them to the Hebrew people, and the Hebrew people turned them into 6,000 laws. Humans are the ones that are saying that. Humans are corrupting what the message was from the Creator and turning that around and then making comments and doing that. And men have to have the women being stifled and taken out of the equation. The only way that you can keep these people stuck is that you have to remove the feminine from the equation, because the feminine will be the balance to the masculine warlike energy. So the women had to be downplayed. Like Mary Magdalene could not be the wife of Jesus because then she would be his equal. Nope. She has to be a whore, a hooker that is beneath Jesus and has nothing to do with Jesus in any other fashion besides she's just some woman who's following him, property to the man. And they have to propagate that throughout all of time, because they need women to be out of the way because of what the feminine represents. When God created the heavens and the earth, and then God created whatever religion you believe, there was a separation of masculine and feminine traits between the men and the women, and that's in every religion. So that must be true, because it is a common denominator in all religions all across the earth that there was a creator. That's common. What that creator's name was is completely different depending on the culture and the city and the place around the world, the culture around the world. However, those underlying factors, when you separate out those things that make them different, culture, language, place, time, remove that, the message is still the same. So there was this creation, and then there was the separation down here, because the creator was androgynous. Those are books they took out of the Bibles as well, the ones that said God wasn't a man. They took those out too, because they had to take the woman, the feminine, even out of God, the creator of the universe. Because why? If you pondered that the feminine is just as equal as the masculine, that's going to expand your consciousness, make you more peaceful, going to make you more loving, caring, and nurturing, and you're not going to be warlike, and you're not going to die early, you're not going to die young, and you're not going to stay veiled, because you're going to start living longer, because you're not as violent, you're not murdering each other. They can't have that even to this day. Their power on this earth is only solidified by the feminine being out of the way. It's threatening. Yes, Jamie put it in capital letters. Threatening men. The women, the feminine threatens the masculinity, and threatens the warlike attitude, the lizard brain, threatens their power, threatens their control, threatens their money and control over the people. And so that's why they want you to get on TikTok or on the internet and be an influencer. Money, power, fame, control, clicks, likes. None of that means anything if you're in service to others, because you're more peaceful. You're not warlike, because you balance the masculine and feminine. If you're a woman, you find that masculine part of yourself and venerate the feminine. If you're a man, you find that feminine part of yourself and venerate the masculine. You balance the kundalini and the kunda buffer energy, which they've taken out of that religion, mostly being taught altogether, because it's the feminine. They've done that with all religions around the earth. So when you hear them lying to you and saying the Anunnaki created all religions, if you pay attention, they say the Anunnaki created all religions as they are, because they did create all religions as they are by taking away all of the love, as Jamie puts that when she's talking to Denise. It says, Denise, I love you. The love out of the equation, because they're taking the feminine out of the equation, because people living in fear and violent are easier to control. And if not, you get them to kill each other, they reset, and then they're veiled again, and they never graduate. That's exactly the modus operandi, the MO of the Orion Crusaders, of the evil people, when they're taking over a planet, to stifle the planet, keep control of them, so that they get power, money, fame over them, and they make them build their war machine so that they can move on. Once they deplete a world of all of its resources, they leave that world to die, and they move on to the next world and do the same thing. We humans emulate that down here. When we conquer people, we go in and rape their people, rape their women, rape all of their landscape, take all of their food, take all of their gold, take all of their minerals, and then we leave them with nothing, burn them down, kill the people, stick them in ovens, and breed with their women because we want to have sex and rape them, and maybe they're little boys, and then we eradicate that race of people and their religion. If you look in history, that is the modus operandi of the people on this earth who are self-serving. They're emulating their masters, they're emulating their gods, they're emulating those who they follow, who have been teaching them, because they're self-serving, and the people who come here to invade are also self-serving. So self-serving people ultimately will rise to power and do exactly that to all of their subjects around the world, and that is exactly what's going on this planet. Okay, so I'm here to tell you from an above this planet perspective that is the modus operandi. So the opposite modus operandi of those of us who are in service to others is exactly the message that is taught by Jesus and Mohammed and Moses and Thor and Marduk and all of these people, Lao Tzu, the Buddha, all of these people around the world throughout time who are great leaders, ascended masters who were in service to others, are teaching the opposite knowledge to the people that combats the evil, self-serving way of life that they're trying to make and had remade this planet to be. And now we are rewriting that and bringing back the other side to that opposition, the opposition to that opposition, which is love and harmony and peace and caring and no war and no strife and no power and no greed and no money and no disease and no famine. We're teaching the opposite of that. And the only way you can do that is to venerate the feminine and what that stands for in all of the chakras and how it balances those chakras. And that's what they're trying to tell you that was hidden in these messages that people don't realize, with the gods that rule these things, the gods that created these things, the chakras, the energies, the kundalini, the kunda buffer, the energies, the Celtic knotwork. That knotwork is the masculine and feminine energies. That is the kundalini to another religion. That is the Vesica Pisces to another religion. That is the yin and yang to another religion. It's the same energy being represented either by a picture or math, the Fibonacci sequence and the Fibonacci sequence and the golden mean ratio, masculine and feminine. Do you see? It's all the same thing. It's the flower of life being represented in the physical, in the non-mathematical. You're seeing the flower of life, the Vesica Pisces, the yin and yang, that symbol, the Celtic knotwork, the kundalini. Those are all different depictions of the exact same energy of the natural balance of the universe. I'm writing about that in my second book. Okay. And I wrote about it and told you about it primarily in my first book, but I'm breaking it down exactly the way I just broke it down to you. And it'll be published next year or the year after in my next book. So let's go ahead and run the commercial for my first book, because we got to pay the bills.
What is the reality about reality? Returning to the old ways. It is a comprehensive book about what is really going on here on this planet. It talks about the true spirituality that the controllers who think they own this planet have been keeping from you for thousands of years. It explains to you the knowledge that you gain from the universe itself when you live the way the prophets of the world throughout time told us how to live. Eat right, meditate, take care of yourself, treat others right. All the things they originally told us to do, but the controllers have removed from right in front of our eyes. The way to ascend to heaven. The reality about reality. Returning to the old ways. On sale worldwide, online now.
Okay, so let's continue here. And if you guys have any questions, make sure that you put them in. I see that you guys are making statements and comments in the chat, please. Anybody else out there that's listening, if you guys have questions that you want answered in any way or whatever, put it up in the chat for me, and I will stop and do that. So let's continue, right? So generations of humans to know the works of God, to be, I'm quoting now from the book, you can see it on your screen, to be a working witness to
nature, to increase the number of mankind, to master all things under heaven, to discern the things that are good, to increase by increasing, and multiply by multiplying.
And having free will to do so. Do you see? Continuing.
And through the wonder-working course of the cycling gods, they created every soul incarnate to contemplate heaven the course of the heavenly gods, the works of God, and the working of nature, to examine things that are good, to know divine power, to know the whirling changes of fair and foul, and to discover every means of working skillfully with things that are good.
Hello, Mark Barden here
Marshall.
from Sandy Hook Promise.
Hold on, I'll skip it as soon as
On
I
December 14th, 2000.
For them, this is the beginning of the virtuous life and of wise thinking as far as the course of the cycling gods destines it. And it is also the beginning of...
See, so the cycling gods, that is the chakras, right? The rulers of those certain aspects. Now, to the Greeks, the spindle wheel, the cycling gods. Let's continue.
Their release to what will remain of them after they have left great monuments on earth in works of industry. In the fame of seasons they will become dim, and from every birth of ensouled flesh, from the sowing of crops, and from every work of industry, what is diminished will be renewed by necessity, and by the renewal that comes from the gods, and by the course of nature's measured cycle. For the divine is the entire combination of cosmic influence renewed by nature, and nature has been established in the divine.
Right? So you have to see that. You have to realize that. Right? I keep forgetting to put myself back up on the screen so you guys can see me while I'm talking, right? So you have to realize there again, remember when I said earlier, getting back and getting in tune with nature. If you're in service to others, nature will become more in tune with you, or allow you to see it and not run from you and not snub you. Nature will then start to go, wait, this person's not as much of a threat as I thought, because this person is not self-serving. So nature itself will then start to warm up to you, and then you can get back to nature. You can feel that when you get in tune with nature and you start getting in tune with the matrix itself, then you start to realize that you have more actual control over the matrix than you do when you're fighting against it, when you believe that it's just a reality and that it's just something that is there for you to toy with or use or chop down or burn or pull its nutrients out, mine it and take it because you want to melt it down and make it into substance to put on your body and in your body and make things out of it that's valuable and sell it to other people and hoard it to make it worth more money because you want power, money, fame, control of the world itself and all of the people. So when you get past that, when you move into the nature of nature and you start becoming in tune with it, that's then you have to balance the masculine and feminine to do so, which means you become more peaceful, which means you become more passive, which means you become more in tune with the loving, caring energy that is the balance in the universe itself, which is what all these ascended masters were teaching to begin with. That's the common denominator. Let's continue here. Let me put this back up in full screen and we'll continue. So now we're on to part 4.
4. A discourse of Hermes to Tet, the mixing bowl or the monad. Since the craftsman made the whole cosmos by reasoned speech, not by hand, you should conceive of him as present, as always existing, as having made all things, as the one and only, and as having crafted by his own will the things that are. For this is his body, neither tangible nor visible, nor measurable nor dimensional, nor like any other body. It is not fire, nor water, nor air, nor spirit, yet all things come from it. Because he is good, it was not for himself alone that he wished to make this offering, and to adorn the earth. So he sent the man below, an adornment of the divine body, mortal life from life immortal.
Okay, so now you have the creation of the human condition being created in the likeness of God. So God created man in the ancient Hebrew, right? God created man in his own likeness. So here you have that same scenario being explained from the Greek point of view of Hermes, right? So now you have that scenario that God created the condition, God created and allowed the condition to be once again, right? So mortal life was created and created in the likeness of the creator, meaning not just, everyone thinks that when you say that, when people say in the created in the likeness of the creator, they think physicality, like my features, that the human condition is God looks like me. And that's where you get that idea of the Greek gods sitting in togas, wearing sheets, sitting on a throne somewhere, that God looks like me, only with curly hair and a big beard sitting up on a throne. That's not what God looks like. God is, you're told God has no physical form. God is energy. The creator of the universe is energy. So if the creator of the universe is energy, then when I was created in the creator's likeness, it must not be referring to this flesh. But people don't ponder that. They assume that, like, because a lot of the Greeks always was, had showed their gods depicted as humans, right? So everybody from there believed that, and then they started doing that. The Romans did the same thing. When did they start doing that and saying that the gods had a human likeness? Was it because it said God created the human race in its image, or was that just a part of the corruption to make people believe that God was nothing more than a human, or that we would equate with that? Because if you don't equate the creator of the universe with the human condition, then it's something else. And if you're trying to eradicate that something else out of the picture, you need people to then equate the creator with the physical body. You can't have the creator be energy, because that expands your consciousness. So if you look in time, when did the history of the religions start equating the creator of the universe as a male figure, first of all, not a male or female or an androgynous figure, but when did that change happen? The change happened at a definitive time in history when the monotheistic male-dominated religions became the religions that were allowed to flourish on this planet, and all monotheistic female, monotheistic meaning single entity, female religions were eradicated, and all talk of aspects that were androgynous, male, both male and female as one, or religions that were male and female counterparts, the masculine had to have been pushed above the feminine, and the feminine had to take a back seat. So you have religions that had those, the Viking religion, the Greek religion, the Roman religion, but there had to be the male god in charge and the female were below them. Ultimately, the man has the say. Why? That had to have been done because they needed to control the masses, and they needed to have the masses be warlike. So therefore, women had to take a second seat to men. Women had to be pushed down to property, something to be abused and owned and kept silent, so that people would stay away from that energy of the goddess, of the feminine, of the love, of the nurturing, of the caring, and expand their consciousness. Because if you ponder that and you ponder this, you stop listening to the masculine energy when they say, go kill them, kill yourself. Here, strap on this bomb, go over there and blow it up. If you start listening to the feminine, you become less warlike. You also start questioning more, in which case you stop listening when somebody says, go over there and kill people because I told you to. Wait a minute, what? Why is it that I'm listening to you? Well, God told me to do it. God wills it. That worked for a certain time on this planet, and then that stopped working. Why? Because they lost control of the feminine, of women, and women started to fight back. Why? Because that was the time when the creator allowed that to happen, because it was supposed to happen. So the feminine started to rise and fight against only the masculine being here. And we are in a place now where we're moving into a place in the universe where it's changing the energy because it is time. Okay. We're in the Milky Way galaxy. We're moving into the Milky Way galaxy, into a place that is actually stronger with feminine religion religion energy than masculine. So it's changing the dynamic of this place at the same time that we are changing the dynamic of this place intentionally. Why? Because the creator wanted it to happen exactly now, the way this is happening, exactly in this place at this time in the development of this particular planet here. And all of you are here to witness that. All of you came here to go through this scenario when this thing is happening the way it's happening. You just don't know that because you don't remember that. Some of us know about it and some of us remember that. Okay, so let's continue. Let's move back into this. Oh, I didn't put that back into full screen, did I? Let me do that and let's continue, okay?
And if the cosmos prevailed over living things as something
And the cosmos is the universe, right? That's the word that they used for the universe, the cosmos.
ever living, the man prevailed even over the cosmos through reason and mind. The man became a spectator of God's work. He looked at it in astonishment and recognized its maker. God shared reason among all people, O Tat, but not mind, though he begrudged it to none. Grudging envy comes not from on high, it forms below in the souls of people who do not possess mind. For what reason then did God not share mind with all of them, my father?
Here's how a doctor treats
Or-
toenail fungus
I'll
without
skip
a
it as soon as you
prescription.
can here.
If your toenail fungus came back after using tea tree,
He wanted it put between souls, my child, as a prize for them to contest. And where did he put it? He filled a great mixing bowl with it and sent it below, appointing a herald whom he commanded to make the following proclamation to human hearts. Immerse yourself in the mixing bowl if your heart has the strength, if it believes you will rise up again to the one who sent the mixing bowl below, if it recognizes the purpose of your coming to be. All those who heeded the proclamation and immersed themselves in mind participated in knowledge and became perfect people because they received mind.
Okay, see, so here again is people, this is where the mixing bowl is the call in, let me pull myself back on the screen so you guys can see me. The mixing bowl is the call to souls that were created to volunteer to come down and be veiled, immersed in mind, to be veiled in this place to become these things. So there was a group that were created before the veiling, and those souls were ascending back to become God, having scenarios. The creator then said, I seem to be lazy and I'm not moving fast enough. I need to come up with a different scenario to where I can move faster. That was the veiling. That was chaos. That was self-serving. That was evil, was created at that moment. But God needed to populate that. So the creators asked for volunteers of souls to then switch to the other side and also to go and become veiled to start the scenario so that we could put people into those scenarios and let them organically run through. But you're not going to remember that you're the creator. You're not going to remember anything at all. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. You're volunteering to come down and be veiled and go through the scenario. So all the people that were unveiled, that were never veiled, when they merged back with the creator, were given the possibility at that point, you can now, if you want, instead of just coming back and merging with me, you can volunteer to go back down and start all the way over, but the new scenario where you're veiled. And this is the only place that I have found this knowledge being talked about so far, where God is telling someone on earth about this. Okay. And this is what you're hearing here. So what you're hearing here is God called for people to volunteer to be of mind, to go down and be of mind and not know and be veiled and live in this scenario and either choose to be good or evil and to play out these scenarios new, because they're new scenarios now that they weren't creating before, because the added chaos, evil, and the mind wiping and free will and the usurpation of free will or the non-usurpation of free will. All of those new laws that were governing this place in this scenario were enacted to create new scenarios that weren't there before for the creator to experience and all of us to experience. Again, I say, none of this is happening to you. All of this is happening for you. You volunteered for this. None of this is happening to you. You were asked at some point if you wanted to come down here, and you did. Okay. So even when people say, well, I'm only here for the first couple of lives, I'm a new soul. You're still part of the creator, which means that you were either a soul who already grew up before the veiling, or a new one that the creator decided to create as well to put down here, so that there wasn't only people that had some sort of residual or possible residual memory of the creator, but new souls who didn't have that were coming down here. So you're one or the other. There is no other possibility. And that doesn't matter because it's still source. It's still the creator of the universe. So you either are mind wiped and you have a memory at some point of being the creator and of not being the creator, or you don't have that memory. But once you merge back with the creator, you have all of those memories anyway, because everything and everyone is in fact the creator. So that even scenario doesn't matter as much. But the scenario that's happening here does, because it's teaching even the creator new scenarios and new variations and new ways and new things. Do you see? And that's where right here in this part is very important, because it's actually talking about that particular scenario playing out. Let me go over here and continue this.
But those who missed the point of the proclamation are people of reason, because they did not receive the gift of mind as well, and do not know the purpose or the agents of their coming to be. These people have sensations much like those of unreasoning animals, and since their temperament is willful and angry,
people that have become evil, people that are self-serving. So here you see that literally the separation of some people have the wisdom and the being in service to others, and other people have the temperance and the temperament of being angry and like animals, self-serving, darkness, evil. So the separation of not just masculine and feminine, but now those aspects take on a different separation, and that separation, so it's not just of the sexes, but it is now of also the good versus evil. So the masculine being aggressive is the more self-serving, lower three chakras. Feminine being the more nurturing, caring, loving, upper three chakras, feminine. So those aspects were added to the already existing aspects. And here you see that being discussed, that the personality traits were different.
they feel no awe of things that deserve to be admired. They divert their attention to the pleasures and appetites of their bodies, and they believe that mankind came to be for such purposes. But those who participate in the gift that comes from God, O Tat, are immortal rather than mortal, if one compares their deeds. For in a mind of their own they have comprehended all, things on earth, things in heaven, and even what lies beyond heaven.
Okay, so now they're talking about the ascension. So if you are in service to others, you gain a knowledge of these things on earth and in heaven, and even what lies beyond that. You learn, you have those downloads, okay? You have those downloads that you can only have if you are not self-serving. Self-serving, you get this place, you think clicks, power, money, fame, likes, all of that is what you're seeking. Control, that is what you're seeking. If you're in service to others, more balanced, more feminine in your energy, not meaning that, oh, now I'm no longer a man, I'm gay, meaning that you're balancing your energy, upper and lower chakras, bottom three, upper three, balanced by the heart chakra, 3, 6, 9. Okay, balanced by the heart chakra, and now you are in your enlightening yourself. You are asking questions. You are pondering things, not from a perspective of how I can control, what can I get, what power will this give me, but what can I do? What can I help? How can I help? I am in service to others. You gain that knowledge, and that knowledge expands your consciousness. You grow in love for others, not in love of self. You move up into the spiritual. You start shedding the physical body as you start moving up in these 4th dimension, 5th dimension, 6th dimension. You start going from dimension, physicality, to density, energy, body. And then you start gaining more knowledge and wisdom on that path as you're going back to the Creator, because now you are living like the Creator. Now we look at Jesus saying that the way to heaven is through me. So you look at God, the Creator, saying, I am. What am I? I am this, I am that. So when you become I am, when you start thinking, I am in service to others, not me, I, but I am. So you start seeing things from that perspective. You start getting that knowledge, and you start seeing those things. And then you realize that the people who are living in the flesh are always going to live in the flesh until they make the difference and make the change and stop living in the bottom three chakras, listen to their heart, and other than loving themselves, love others and move into the spiritual, the upper three chakras. And you still have, then you have to balance all of them, balancing the masculine and the feminine, balancing the Kundalini and the Kunda buffer, the yin and the yang, the Vesica Pisces. You have to balance that 3, 6, and 9. You have to balance that harmonic resonance within yourself, within nature, and then you get those downloads. Expand your consciousness. You start to realize and learn the same messages that everyone else learns and knows, that are doing the same thing, no matter what the culture, no matter where you are in on the planet, no matter the language that you speak. The illumination of your knowledge is universal. Okay, and this is being discussed here in this passage, and it's not as, there's not as many, like there's some out there. I'm going to cover those as we get past the Hermetica, going into like the Emerald Tablets, going into, we'll probably do those next, then going into, like, say, the Book of Truth and some of the other scrolls that were taken out of the religions, the big four religions that we have here, that were discounted because they didn't want you to know what was being taught there. You're hearing in the Hermetica right here in the Corpus Hermeticum. All right, let me put this back up in full screen and we'll continue. And like I said, if you have any questions, I am monitoring the chat. I will stop and answer your questions. Let's continue.
Having raised themselves so far, they have seen the good, and having seen it, they have come to regard the wasting of time here below as a calamity. They have scorned every
Okay, I'll just check the chat. And Denise asked a question. She said, Leo, let me put it up on the screen. Leo, person born as a female but feel like a male, what could that be? I hope this doesn't sound silly. It does not sound silly at all. And the different aspects that rule each one of us from these chakras, the personality traits, those gods that Hermes is talking about that govern those personality traits. The Thoth, the Atlantean, talks about that as well. The yin and yang talks about that, the Kundalini energy. Those things that govern us allow us to become the individual. So you have people that will come in. Just because you were born in a female body doesn't mean that you're going to be feminine. Okay? You can be anything that you wish. So men who are born in a masculine body want to be more feminine, and they come in and that aspect rules them more than the feminine, even though they're in a masculine body. Why? Because it's a possibility that somebody came up with. So a man that is feminine in a masculine body who likes other men, say, is a scenario that somebody thought of, then it can happen. So therefore someone can do it. The creator allows that. The same goes for a female in a female body who is more masculine. And then I like women, or people who are born in a body who like both men and women. Do you see? All of that is a scenario. If we can think it up, as below, so above, that scenario can happen. So someone who comes in, it's because there's an aspect of that person who is feminine, who is born female, not feminine, but born female, that wanted to be in the female body, but didn't want to be as feminine as a female, wanted to be more masculine. Because of that, the creator allows that to happen. Some religions will get mad, even though I'm a Christian minister, and some of the Christian religions that are out there, I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church at some points would excommunicate me for saying what I'm saying. In the Muslim religion, if we're going by ancient Muslim law, I would be murdered over this because of me saying this to you. But those things are semantical. Those things are things that the people made up, because you have to remember, they removed the books of the Bible that told of that, not just the Hebrew Bible, but the Christian Bible and the Muslim Bible and all of the creation stories of all of the religions that are on this earth that told of a dual aspect, God, goddess ruling together, or a God, goddess ruling as one, being androgynous, male and female. All of those storylines were removed because the feminine could not be anywhere near the masculine, because you can't control a society If you have love, nurturing, caring, can only control a society when they live in fear, when they're angry, when they're fighting, when they're killing each other. This is why you see that playing out all around the world, even today, where you have people trying to run around and wreak havoc, causing protests and violence and attacking things. And when you look at it, on its face, it says these are just citizens who are angry and they're doing that. And when someone looks closer, you find out, well, isn't it weird that they all have the same tent, just different colors, and they're all brand new? Where did they get those? Isn't it weird that they all have the brand new same T-shirt on that's printed? Who printed those and paid for that? Isn't it weird that they all have the same signs that are created and they look like they were created not by hand, by individuals? They all say the same thing. How is that possible? When you look at those and you find out where those came from, you find out those were all paid for by specific people. And you'll find that when you look across the board, that all the same people are paying for all those things, which means those people are orchestrating it. To what end would those people be orchestrating this? When you look at those people and their political aspirations of some sort and that religion of evil, which politics, power, money, fame, control, everything that is the stock market, all of that is the religion of evil. What is it that they're seeking? Ultimately, always the same. Power, money, control, fame. Done deal. The religion of evil is power, money, fame, control. Okay, so they are self-serving and they are behind everything, orchestrating it to create chaos, to get people to kill each other, to get people to have strife, to keep people living in fear, so they're easier to control, so that they can keep their family in charge, making all the money, controlling all the masses, controlling all the people, and when they need it, get the people upset with each other and get them to kill each other. The modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders, the modus operandi of the Anunnaki, the modus operandi of all self-serving humans on this earth, the 1% that rule this planet and believe they own it. That is what they do. And when you look close enough, you see that playing out. And if you pay attention and don't just watch one news channel and watch all of the news channels, even the ones you hate what they have to say, and you pay attention to what they're saying, you'll find there's an underlying common denominator, and that underlying common denominator is always the truth. If you have more than one child and you're a parent, you know that what I'm saying is true. If you don't have children and you don't have more than one child, you may not know what I'm saying to you. But if you have ever had to deal with or babysit children, then you know what I'm saying. And if you haven't, and you're a detective of any kind, and you go up, or a police officer, and you come up on a crime scene, the first thing you do is separate all the people and ask them questions individually. Why? Because people collectively will start agreeing with each other and make up one story. But when you separate them, you find out the truth. So if you have two children in the other room and they're fighting and you walk in there, they're both going to point at the other one and go, he said, he did, she did, it was his fault, he did that. They're both going to say they're the victim and the other person started it. The only way that you find out the truth is to assume that they're both lying about that, and you look at what's the underlining thing. The underlining thing is they were beating each other up. Okay, so that was actually happening. We can see that. So who started it? They both say the other one started it. So as a parent, you become less of a detective at that point, because they're both going to lie to you and tell you that story. And you go, all right, that's it. I'm done with both of you. You're both going to go to your rooms and you're not going to stop. And then but I didn't do anything. The one of you that didn't do anything, you're going to be upset because the other one got you into trouble. Instead of fighting with each other, now as a parent, you're supposed to teach this to them. Instead of fighting with your brother or sister, whichever one of you didn't do it, you need to stop and come to us and tell us that this person is doing this to you, so that, well, I don't want to be a tattletale. Well, it's self-serving people convince you not to be a tattletale so they can take advantage of you, and you won't go tell the authorities about it because they don't want you to do it. So they say, well, you're a snitch, you're a tattletale because you went and told on me. Well, if you didn't do the evil thing, I wouldn't have to tell on you. So then people set up society that way, and they utilize that. And then they tell you, the same people who tell you not to be a snitch are the first ones to set up a hotline so that you can tell on your friends and family, because now they want to know and need to know what your friends and family are up to because they want to control them. Same people teaching you the opposite of what they were teaching you before. You have to see the underlying thing. So literally what happens is that you have to realize this balance. You have to realize that out here in the world, when you're watching what's going on in the news, that if you don't watch both sides of it, you're only going to get the lie that one side's telling you. Are they both telling you lies? Absolutely. They're both telling you lies from their perspective. But how you find out the truth is you listen to one side lying about the other people, and you listen to this side lying about them, and you go, what are they both saying? What is it that they're both saying that is in common? That's the truth of what's happening. So both of them are saying that person's a threat to democracy. That person's a threat to democracy. That means they're both a threat to democracy. That person is evil. That person is evil. Both of them are evil. That person is lying. That person is lying. Both of them are lying. The underlying thing that they keep accusing each other of doing is what they're doing themselves. So you have to learn that. So what's happening here? What's happening is they're both fighting. Why are they fighting? Control, power, money, and fame. They're both self-serving. Stop that. If one's not self-serving, when you say, don't fight with that person when they do this to you, come to us, that person's going to come to you and go, they're doing it again. Self-serving people might also do that and then lie about it, and they're doing it again. I didn't do anything, and it continues. So you have to then, as the adult, separate them and say, I'm done with both of you. You guys stay away from each other. You sit in your room, you sit in your room, and calm down. And if you guys can't get together, we're not going to allow you to get together anymore. And then they'll change because they're lonely, and even the evil one wants to have someone to take advantage of and power over. So they're going to also want to change. So we have to do that in society. We have to realize everyone's lying to us. What's the underlying thing? All religions are evil, and all religions were created by Anunnaki. All religions are fake. They're all saying that. So why are they saying that about religions? What is the common denominator? The common denominator is there's a message that's underlying, and that message is ascension. That is not power, money, fame. It is there is something else out there that is loving, caring, and knowing. And they've been trying to edit that out from everything throughout all of time. Why? Okay. Getting back to the possibilities, because of the possibilities of free will, that creates more scenarios that create more chaos. There's chaos that was created. So when we have free will, we as individuals can come in as anything that we want. I can be in a man's body but love men. I can be in a man's body and love women. I can be in a man's body and love men and women. I can be in a woman's body, the complete opposite. Right? I can be in either one of those bodies and not want to have sex with anybody. To what degree is individual for each individual person, and whether the religions lie to you and tell you that it's bad and you should be killed for it or not, they're going to tell you can't say the God's name or you're going to get killed. You can't draw a picture of God or you're going to get killed. You can't cut your hair or you're going to get killed. You can't show your face or you're going to get killed. You can't show your feet or you're going to get killed. You can't get a tattoo or you're going to get killed. That's all control. God never said any of those things. They're telling you that. So you are free from the moment you left God, the creator. And if you want to be a woman who feels like a man, live it, embrace it, see if you like it. If you want to be a man who loves men, do it, see if you like it. Okay? But don't start having all your shit hacked off of yourself before you find out if you enjoy it or not. Don't have shit added to your body until you find out whether you like it or not. But embrace that, because the creator of the universe, there is nowhere when you see that stuff in the Bibles where that is detestable by God. That wasn't in the original book. Humans wrote that. Why? Because they're trying to keep women out of the equation altogether. Women are supposed to be property. Why? Because if they are feminine, then they have those aspects. We can't have that. So I don't know if that answers what you were saying. Oh, Cassie, hi. I didn't even realize you came in. I don't know if that answers the questions of what you're saying. I'm over here talking to the camera like I had put myself up in full screen and I forgot to, so you guys couldn't even see me while I was talking. But I hope that answers your question, that everything is because the creator said that it was okay to do so, right? So even the mutilating of the body parts, you have free will. You can do that if you want, but there's consequences to everything you do. So all of that is free will. All of that is carte blanche. So everybody needs to stop worrying about what other people are doing and only worry about themselves. Because if everyone did that and stopped worrying about everyone else, then people would stop listening to everyone else, and you couldn't have control over the masses. So the evil people that are in control, or that are trying to be in control, need you to want to be paying attention to everybody else and tell on your friends. So they need everybody to be in everybody else's business, because if you're so focused on being in everybody else's business, and you have to tell me what my pronouns are, and you have to venerate me because of this, and you can't say that because it's offensive to me, that means you're fighting over everything, and you're not looking at the common denominator, which is spirituality, which is ascension, because they're keeping you in the flesh. They're keeping you away from learning that there is a creator, that there is something, that I am something else, that I am and I can become, and there is something better. They want you here focused on likes, clicks, power, money, fame, control. Oh, but you'll never get the power, money, fame, control that we have as the 1%, no matter how hard you try, because we're in charge. And that's what they want you to believe. So you have total carte blanche. You have total anonymity to do what you want. You have that. That is free from the moment the creator created you. And in fact, it is encouraged. And all the books that told you that were ripped out of all the Bibles, and only the books that said men are in charge, power, money, fame, listen to me, do as I say, not as I do. And I'm going to lock you down because I'm going to tell you there's a disease that you're going to get, while I'm sitting at a French restaurant that costs $10,000 a plate with $5,000 bottle of wine, sitting with all my friends, no mask on, no self-distancing, because I'm not a peasant and a slave like you. So you can't even go to church, but you can go to a bar and get drunk. Oh, and by the way, essential workers are all the companies that we own. So, retail stays open, and you guys got to weather that storm and get sick and die because I need you to buy my food and my products, but you can't do anything on your own, and you can't have your own products. Those are non-essential. But all of the corporations that we rich people own are essential corporations that need to stay open, to keep making money, keep going to our stores, keep buying our shit. But anything you own individually, nah, you can't come out and do that stuff. They tried that during a little disease that is now considered a cold, called the plague, I can't talk, I can't say the words. I'm going to anyway, see if I get my latency screwed up, called COVID. Okay, let's go over here and continue.
Corporeal and incorporeal thing, and they hasten toward the one and only. This, Tat, is the way to learn about mind, to resolve perplexities in divinity, and to understand God. For the mixing bowl is divine. I too wish to be immersed, my father. Unless you first hate your body, my child, you cannot love yourself. But when you have loved yourself, you will possess mind. And if you have mind, you will also have a share in the way to learn. What do you mean by this, Father? My child, it is impossible to be engaged in both realms, the mortal and the divine. Since there are two kinds of entities, corporeal and incorporeal, corresponding to mortal and divine, one is left to choose one or the other if choice is desired. One cannot have both together when one is left to choose, but lessening the one reveals the activity of the other.
See, so here, this is literally talking about the creation of that. And if you choose to be self-serving, you will be locked in mind. You will not have the memory. One cannot have one without the other, but one can only possess one, not the other. But if you have the balance of the two, then it lessens the one. And then you see that right there, when the one is left to choose, but lessening the one reveals the activity of what? The other. So it reveals the activity of the other. So if you are in service to self, you learn the activity of people that are in service to others, but you are self-serving. If you become in service to others, then you become aware of what self-serving people are doing, because you're becoming more not like them. So therefore, you have the ability to see them. So when people become in service to others, then the people who are in service to self lose power over them, because you become aware of what they're up to. And that is what God is telling him here. The mixing bowl is your choice. That is this place, the whirlwind, that is third dimension. And you volunteer to come down here. You pick a topic. You're either in service to self or you're in service to others. And then you go from there and you ascend on those. Okay? And you ascend as those. And one or the other. You cannot be neutral. There is no neutrality. You can try that. Right? You can try that because it's a possibility, but ultimately you're going to start doing one or the other because you're going to start liking what you gain from one or the other. So once you gain, if you move into the spiritual part where you're learning about the people and being in service to others, and you stay on that path, then you become aware of what they're doing, self-serving people, and you don't fall for their tricks anymore. If they keep you confused that you don't know that there's a choice, which is the modus operandi, once again, of the Anunnaki or the Orion Crusaders, whatever you know them as, the Illuminati, the deep state, they keep you not knowing that there is a choice. They keep you right there, completely occupied, so that you're never making that choice. You're looking for power, money, fame, likes, but you're not self-serving. So you're not going to fully go down that road. So what am I supposed to do in life? I don't know because I'm veiled. There's got to be more to life than this, and I don't know what it is. Why? Because they're taking it away from your vision so you can't see it. So you can't figure out that path. And then they tell you all religions are a lie. They're all fake. They're all made up. They're all created to control you. And then you go, I don't want to have anything to do with religion or politics. They don't care. Politics is their religion. I don't talk about politics or religion. Those are taboo. I don't want to have anything to do with either one of them. I avoid them. So if you're staying away from spirituality, you're staying away from religion because they've been taking control of the religions and spirituality has been taken out of that. That's why I say religion recruits you, but spirituality, it's on the back. This is on the back. It says that in my book. Reality is the reality about reality, returning to the old ways, is religion recruits you, spirituality waits for you to find it. If you are self-serving, you're not going to try and find spirituality. You're going to find physicality, power, money, fame, likes. If you are religious and they can keep you in the religion that has been corrupted, you're not going to find spirituality. But if you truly have chosen to be in service to others, you will still find the spirituality in that religion because they don't understand the books they left in. And the books they left in are still teaching you that spirituality. But the only way that you can learn it is to learn the religion and start questioning everything, including the religion. Then you start getting universal downloads, universal knowledge, and then you start learning the modus operandi of people that are self-serving, so they can't brainwash you, they can't Jedi mind trick you, they can't gaslight you anymore. You don't buy their lies. And then you realize that the churches are also lying. And if you run away from both of those and never go back and just live your life, I just want to live my life, now you're living in the flesh again. They want that too. That's a side effect of that. But if you then say, I believe there is something more, and I'm going to keep looking for it. I'm going to look on all religions, and I'm going to not do the one that my parents got me to do, and I'm going to start looking at all the other religions. Eventually, you start learning the underlying factors that are the same in all the religions. And then you start going, I'm non-denominational, but you start taking the good things that are the same in all of the religions, and you say, these are all identical. I'm going to stick to those because all of them can't be wrong, but all of them can't be right individually, but they all have this right. And that's the way that you start going down the path of ascension. If you don't have anyone to help you, you will eventually get there because it's right before your eyes. So eventually you'll start seeing, because you'll be seeing them more and more for what they really are. Their true colors are coming out. And then you're going to see, well, the churches are also corrupt, but they all have the same underlining thing. What's that? And that's why we're trying to teach that to you, because that underlining thing is the spirituality that you're supposed to learn, that you're supposed to ask questions so that you expand your consciousness, because the same downloads that I get are the same downloads that you're going to get, or the same downloads that everyone on this earth, everywhere around the universe will get the same exact knowledge if they're in service to others. at some point in your development, and you will start going, wait a minute, either a whole bunch of us are crazy or I'm starting to catch on to what's really going on here. Okay, let's continue, right? Let me put this back up in full screen. And here you see them discussing that actual dynamic in that what they're referring to as the, what we would say, melting pot or the mixing bowl. The mixing bowl is the whirlwind that is this place, the spiral that is this place, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden mean ratio, that is the nature of nature or the nature of the beast. You choose which side you want, you get the downloads from that side, and you become more of that, whatever you choose. Okay? And if you choose to be in service to self, you'll live in the flesh. Power, money, fame, you're going to want to be rich, you're going to want to be famous, you're going to want to have control, power, some of those aspects. You're going to buy into that anti-religion, which is the politic, and all that entails: business, politics, power, money, fame, control of people, control of properties, control of the stock market, control of governments. Or you're in service to others, in which case you're going to be nurturing, caring, loving, and you're going to be trying to help the people and help yourself and help the world. And you're not going to be evil and try to control them and rape them and pillage them. And you're going to be a good person, and you're going to get those downloads. And as you go down that path, it'll dominate your destiny, just like Yoda said to Luke. The dark side, when you start going down the dark side path, forever will it dominate your destiny. When you start going down a path, it'll start dominating your destiny. The Native Americans said, which wolf will you feed? There's two wolves. One wolf is good, one wolf is evil. The wolf you become is the wolf that you feed the most. That's the devil on your left shoulder and the angel on your right shoulder. Which one you listen to, the conscience, or to justify it, the devil on your left shoulder is the ego. The angel on your right shoulder is your conscience, not your consciousness, but your conscience. Which one of those you listen to is the personality that you become. Those are the gods, the aspects. Those are the chakras, the lower three chakras and the upper three chakras working in tandem to become those archetypes and those personalities. One saying rape and pillage and steal and take that money and steal that guy's homework, and the other saying don't do that, that's not right, I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. Love people, love thy neighbor, love love thy neighbor like you love yourself. Jesus said that, right? Those aspects are the upper three chakras, the feminine chakras. Let's continue.
Don't try this baking soda trick unless you're ready to last all night until she says stop. Last Thursday night, I thought my husband...
Choosing the stronger, then, not only has splendid consequences for the one who chooses, in that it makes the human into a god, but it also shows...
Okay, hold on. I didn't see that. I apologize. I had my glasses off while I was talking there, and I just came on and Cassie had a question. Denise said that, and Penny said that. Let me go up here. Let me find Cassie's question. I apologize, Cassie, for not seeing that. Where was that? I don't see the question. Let me see if I can find it. Retype it or something. I don't see that. Yeah, I don't see the question. Somebody please retype the question for me so that I can find the question. Because I don't see that. I apologize for that. Let me go back to when Cassie came in and see if there's a question there that I missed. I apologize, Cassie. Please retype the question for me, and I will endeavor to answer that for you. Okay, let me see here.
Insurance offer, $35,000. The Jacoby Myers result, $500,000. Insurance offer, $0. Our result, $2 million. Insurance offer, $100,000. Our result, $1.65 million. That's the difference. Experience Jacoby Myers, because
Is that the question I see? Well, wait, why should we hate our bodies? I never said that. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there. Hate our bodies in order to love ourselves. I didn't say that, so I'm not sure. And then I don't know. Are you saying that it was in the book? Is that what I'm missing? Hate our bodies to love ourselves? No. Hate the flesh is if they were talking about that, they were talking about living in the flesh, choosing to be self-serving. And you have to remember I don't know if that's what it was that you were asking. They just said we need to hate our bodies in order to love ourselves. Yes. So the reference here You have to remember this is a 5,000-year-old conversation. So the reference is being lost in translation, and they're talking about the flesh. So not saying actually hate your physical body, but hate the physicality in order to love ourselves. Okay, so that's a translation problem. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I had missed that while I was talking about other things. So then let's specify that. Thank you, Cassie, for pointing that out. I blew past that and didn't see that. So God's not saying to hate your body, like, massacre yourself or kill yourself. The body is the flesh. The body living here in your physical body is living in the matrix, is living in the flesh. So you're supposed to, in the word that they were using is probably translated wrong, saying hate, because they would use the word detest in the Old Testaments, and that word didn't mean hate. Today it does mean hate, but it didn't back then, right? So literally not saying hate your body as in your physical body and give up your physical body, although people would love to have you do that and kill yourself so that you would have to recycle. But the concept is stop living in the flesh, live in the spirit, live in the soul, move into the upper three chakras, which is spiritual. So you're expanding away from the physicality as you go into the fourth and fifth and sixth density, and you start moving into the density instead of the dimension. That's leaving the flesh body and moving into the spirit body. That's why we teach, and including Taoism and Buddhism, teaching I am not the physical body. I am not the pain body. Because when you equate with this physical body, that's physicality. So in the rough translation from thousands of years ago from the Greek and the Latin, they come up with the word hate, but that doesn't mean that. That's why if you see like the translation of Jesus talking about in the letters to the churches, they don't translate that word to hate. They keep it as detest. And if you look up what that word meant when at the time of Jesus, detesting something didn't mean hatred. But today that's what it means. Just like when Mary Magdalene was hanging out with Jesus, Mary, the only person out of all the companions, out of all the people that were following Jesus, there was only one that was referred to as a companion of Jesus, and that was Mary. Today, that word means pal, buddy, someone that I hang out with. In Jesus's time, it meant spouse. So lost in translation, they're using the word, and I blew past that, and I apologize for that. So thank you, Cassie, for catching that, and thank you guys for yelling at me, because I had my glasses off and wasn't looking at the chat. And once I looked at it, I saw that people were yelling at me in capital letters. Cassie's got a question. I'm like, where is this question? So yeah, so we're not supposed to hate the body. We're supposed to hate the flesh. We're supposed to hate this place, but you don't really want to hate it. So that the word detest was used, because hate is a wrong term. So the translation into English by Oxford either was done on purpose, or the closest they could come up with in the modern English language was the word hate, but that's not what the creator was saying there. The creator was using the word detest, which means to turn your back on, not hate something, not angrily attack something. And hate gives, in the modern English, gives the condensate or the connotation of violence. I hate you. It's violent. Hate means violent in our modern language. Detest doesn't mean violence. Detest means I turn my back on, I ignore. So the word would have been closer to our meaning of the word detest in the translation from the Sanskrit, but in the Greek, they didn't have that word, so hate was the closest. And in Latin, they also didn't have, that's where we had detest in Latin. But if you're trying to figure that out and you don't understand or understand the knowledge that was being translated, and you take the liberty to go, well, the closest word is hate, those words both overlap in those two languages, now you've changed the book completely. Instead of finding out when this was written, what did that word mean? Do you see? They don't do that, and they don't tell you about that. And that's why right now Mary Magdalene has just gotten done with being a whore and is now an apostle again. But it's the only person that Jesus said to when Jesus went and recruited her, said, "You are mine," and then hugged her. Jesus didn't do that to anybody else, and Jesus didn't call anyone else his companion except for Mary. So why would he say to Mary, you are mine, but not to Joseph, not to Mark, not to Matthew, not to anyone else? You are mine. Never said that to anyone else. That's written down in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Why then was Jesus referring to Mary as his companion, and why did everyone else refer to Mary as his companion, but no one else was referred to as Jesus's companion? Because the word didn't mean pal, buddy, someone I'm hanging out with. What did it mean at the time? You have to go back and learn what it meant at the time. And at the time, that word meant spouse. So those books had to be eradicated, because back then everyone knew that if there was anywhere in the book that said that Mary was Jesus's companion, everyone knew that meant his wife. Get those books out of there, because we're trying to paint women as not equal. Mary could not be equal to Jesus. Jesus can't be God if he had a wife and children. That means he's a man. Got to get rid of that so we can build him up as God, because monotheistic, not dual aspect, not androgynous, no feminine energy can be interjected here. It's got to be taken out. And you see that happen with the Christianity. The second that Peter usurped the church, he immediately made women diminished and got rid of the feminine. He even stated that beforehand when he was talking about Mary. I hate her and her entire kind, but it's better to be married than to burn. So that meant, if you listen to that, why would he say those things? There's only one reason why he would say those things. He was gay and he was in love with Jesus. And he had to get married to a woman so that he wouldn't offend the church and they wouldn't stone him to death. Better to marry than to burn. So hate the flesh, detest the flesh, turn away from the flesh, and seek the light is what the translation should have been in this aspect. So was that done purposefully in Oxford at the time? Very possible, to keep people from the actual message. So thank you, Cassie, for pointing that out, that I bypassed that so that I could clarify that, because I would have, had I realized that, I was too busy talking and missed it when they said that. For whatever reason, I was distracted and I don't know why I was. So thank you for catching that. Okay, so let me see, because I'm looking at the time here. It's after 6, so I am going to have to go. Let me find out where we are here. I was hoping to get through this part to the end, and I don't know how many more minutes we have. I think we can get to the next chapter. So I shouldn't, but I'm gonna. Let's continue and see if we can get to the end of this chapter and get to 5 instead of being stuck on 4 here, okay?
Reverence toward God. On the other hand, choosing the lesser has been mankind's destruction, though it was no offense to God, with this single reservation. Just as processions passing by in public cannot achieve anything of themselves, though they can be a hindrance to others, in the same way these people are only parading through the cosmos, led astray by pleasures of the body. Since this is so, Tat, what proceeds from God has been and will be available to us. May what comes from us be suited to it, and not deficient. And the evils for which we are responsible, who choose them instead of good things, are no responsibility of God's. Do you see how many bodies we must pass through, my child?
See, and again, then given that we have free will completely, we can't then turn back on God and say, well, it's his fault that he created me and created me fallible, and therefore I'm doing these things. No, because God's giving you complete carte blanche to make your own decisions down here and decide what you're going to do. That is what God gave us. God gave us that ability to do whatever we want, encourages it so that we have different experiences, so that God can learn from those experiences as well as us learning from those experiences.
How many troops of demons, cosmic connections, and stellar circuits in order to hasten toward the one and only? For the good is untraversable, infinite and unending. It is also without beginning, but to us it seems...
Well, see, that's my point. Cassie said they didn't say detest your flesh, they said hate the body. Right, that's my point. My point is that when this book was written, when they translated it from the original scrolls in Oxford in the 1930s, I believe that there were things. That's another reason why I'm doing these things to translate them, is because I believe that, again, they were editing things on purpose to keep you away from the spirituality, to keep you away from the ascension, right? So they used the words hate the body when that literally was a wrongful translation. I see that all the time, even when looking at like the Nostradamus scrolls and the translation. When I was a kid, I read the translations, and that book is banned now and you can't find it anywhere in the world. So I started buying the actual quatrains and looking at the translations that people were translating from that 15th century French to modern English. And I started realizing that they were using their opinion of what they thought that he meant. So I was teaching myself 15th century French so that I could then read that and see. And I would always find the person who did it scientifically and said, this is what this word is here. And they would give you the footnotes of these are the different meanings of this word. And anyone who was honest enough to do that, I would read their stuff more readily than I would the other ones, because this person was saying, I don't know exactly what this word should be translated as, because this is what it meant at the time in 15th century France. This word meant this, this, and this. And each one of these will change the outcome of what this sentence means by putting the word in here. So you as the reader need to quite possibly try to gain access to the idea of which one of these things is it that Nostradamus was saying. Most of the people who translate that stuff don't do that, and they make you believe that whatever their translation is exactly the words, since the exact same thing that Zecharia Sitchin did with translating the word Anunnaki. Okay? So that everybody believes now that that word means those from the heavens came, an entire species of people, when the scholars have said that's not what it means. And they're taking it as the gospel, and they have now added the Anunnaki to the Mesopotamian pantheon of gods, when there was no Anunnaki there from 12,000 years ago until 2015. And then they added that there. Well, we just discovered that. No, you didn't. It was discovered by a wrongful translation that all scholars said so. And then Giorgio Tsoukalos changed it from the god Anu coming to earth and said that. And then the next time he translated it, he said, those from the heavens came. Now it's an entire species. So now the Anunnaki is one whole word, and it means those from the heavens, an entire species of people who came down to earth. And there's a whole genre of people making all kinds of money off of that and propagating that. Again, creating the chaos so that you won't see anything that they don't want you to see. So in this book, which was written and translated in Oxford in the 1930s from the Latin and the Greek scrolls that date back to 12,000 years ago, or date back to 5,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, to Hermes, they're translating in that way. And that's very possible that their word, because they didn't use the word hate back then. That word is a more modern word. They didn't use that concept, that word hate. So you won't find that in the Hebrew Bible anywhere. You'll find the word detest. And then when you look up what did that mean when it was written, you'll find that it means to ignore, turn your back on, right? So the English people at Oxford who put this book together, there's probably other things in here that we'll catch as well, where they're trying to dissuade you and get you away from the ascension and figuring that out and stay living in the flesh. So again, thank you for pointing that out, because I missed it and blew past it and didn't translate it.
Seems to have a beginning, our knowledge of it. Thus, knowledge is not a beginning of the good, but it furnishes us the beginning of the good that will be known. So let us seize this beginning and travel with all speed, for the path is very crooked that leaves familiar things of the present to return to primordial things of old. Visible things delight us, but the invisible cause mistrust. Bad things are the more open to sight, but the good is invisible to what can be seen. For the good has neither shape nor outline. This is why it is like itself, but unlike all others. For the bodiless cannot be visible to body. This is the difference between like and unlike, and the deficiency in the unlike with respect to the like.
See, so here's where the explanation comes in, that the body can't be visible to the spirit. The spirit can't be visible to the body because you move away from that. And then you won't like one if you like the other. And this is where he's saying the unlike with respect to the like. So when you make a choice being in service to others or in service to self, you will then start going down that path, and forever it'll dominate your destiny, right? So then you won't like the people who are in self-serving if you're in service to others, and if you're self-serving, you won't like the people who are in service to others. So you can't like both, because once you choose, you will unlike the one that you're no longer, because you will move away from it. So when you choose the light, you move away from darkness. When you choose darkness, you move away from the light.
The monad, because it is the beginning and root of all things, is in them all as root and beginning. Without a beginning, there is nothing. And a beginning comes from nothing except itself if it is the beginning of other things. Because it is a beginning, then, the monad contains every number, is contained by none, and generates every number without being generated by any other number.
So, all right, hold on, I'll let this play and skip it.
Powerball is trying to censor this video before more people discover the loophole that has already helped my husband.
But everything generated is imperfect and divisible, subject to increase and decrease. None of this happens to what is perfect, and what can be increased takes its increase from the monad, but it is defeated by its own weakness, no longer able to make room for the monad. Such then, Tat, is God's image, as best I have been able to sketch it for you. If your vision of it is sharp, and you understand it with the eyes of your heart, believe me, child, you shall discover the road that leads above, or rather, the image itself will show you the way. For the vision of it has a special property. It takes hold of those who have had the vision and draws them up, just as the magnet stone draws iron, so they say.
Okay, so we'll stop there, because then we're going to go to chapter 5, okay? Because it's now 6:15. I need to get my mother bathed and then get dinner for us. So we'll stop there, and we'll pick up next week part 3 of the Hermetica, or the Corpus Hermeticum, that portion of the Hermetica, next week. But again, you see here now the description of, really quickly, let me turn the camera on here. You see the description of that which is even the id, the monad, being the Greeks would say the ether, or the that which is the creation. So you have the creator creating the creation, and then the what Ra would have said as the potentiation is the monad, and that's where you have that as a dual aspect in the potentiation of the energy, either being manifest by each individual as good, or as in self-serving, or as a service to others. And so you have that dual aspect there, but neither can fully understand it or see it, because one has to choose what to do with the potentiation. And so the face of God is the potentiation, and there's where you get that Trinity again. So God creates the universe and gives you the potentiation of the split that God created, the chaos or the love, and then that is the potentiator, and then you become the actuator of that. So all things in the universe have the potential to either be self-serving or serving, and it is only us that chooses that potential out of the Moab, the potentiation. Do you see? So I wanted to explain that, because that word just popped up in that last paragraph of the sentence there. So that is the potentiator, the potentiation of our choice. Our choice is the choice of what to do with that potentiation. So God's creation is the Moab. God is the matrix is the Moab. Your potentiation of what you do with it. That's why I tell people this place gives you what you want it. So the matrix gives you what you want. It tries to please you. It is the energy that is the potentiation. You make it what you will. So while you're here, this place is either heaven or hell, depending on what you make for yourself. So you're either living in the flesh and it's all about that, or you're living in the spirit and it's all about that, or you're confused and you don't know where you are, and you're moving back and forth between the two, because they're not letting you know that there is a choice to be made, and they're making it for you, and they're trying to keep you right in the center by bouncing you back and forth. So you never see the Moab, you never see the choice, you never see the potentiation. You just do what they tell you to do, which is sit down, wait here, and that's it. take a job, live your life. We'll just give you enough money to survive long enough to die after you're no longer useful to us. And then you'll recycle and continue to do that. They're taking the knowledge of that potentiation out of your head, and that there is a potentiation to go one way or the other. That has been taken from you. And that's what that is. And so, but the face of God is the totality of all of that. And once you realize that totality, by realizing that you're more than this flesh, then you start moving in service to others. And you can't pretend, because the universe can't be fooled. So you either are in service to self or you are in service to others. People who say, I'm neutral, they're actually in service to self, because if they weren't, they wouldn't be worried about being in any of those aspects, and they would be, in fact, in service to others. So anyone who says to me, I'm neutral, I'm lying, and I can do that because you're human, and if you'll buy that, then you'll allow me to do evil shit whenever I want to get away with it. But I'm going to pretend that I'm good so that you don't think I'm evil. Those people are the ones who say they're neutral, always. No one says they're neutral when they're in fact good. They only say they're neutral when they want you to think they are good when they're not. So they want you to believe that you can be neutral and want you to live there where whenever you want, steal. But just don't murder people and try to take my shit because I'm in charge here. That's what they want. They're trying to create that third layer there by keeping you stuck here. And that's what it does. Okay, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. I'll see you guys next Friday, right? Or Saturday if you're in Australia, for the more of this Corpus Hermeticum. We'll continue to do this. Then we'll do the Atlantean, Thoth, the Atlantean, and show you that perspective of the same thing. And then I think I'm going to move into the Book of Truth after that and show that. And then we'll go with some of the other scrolls. I may at some point cover a lot of the Bibles, but I think I'll stay with the books they took out for a while, because most of you out there, if you're learning a religion, you know what they have left for you. So I'll reference them the way they do, and watch for my next book that should be coming out in a couple of years, which will be a lot of what I'm discussing now and what you're going to hear. I'll be showing that in print and showing the comparisons so that you can read them, but I'll be still talking about it the way I'm talking about it now and helping you translate all of these scrolls that are out there that those people didn't understand, or they did, the evil ones, and had to get them out of there, get rid of them, because we don't want people understanding those. And those were originally there, and they're referenced still in what's left. And people like me are helping you to see that. Here's a book they took out, yet here's the same information in one they didn't. Why did they take that book out if this book says the same thing? And that's what we're trying to show you by cross-referencing the message, not the method, in all of the religions around the world. The message is the spirituality. The method is the physicality. And that's what they want you to focus on, is the method, the physicality, not the spirituality, not the message. All right, guys, I love you. Have a great night. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Have a great weekend.